Thunder cracks over an abandoned Chinese estate. In the pouring rain, a squad of dudes draped in pitch-black robes stands completely frozen in the shadows. Lined up like ghosts, one of the cloaked figures breaks the dead silence, calling out to the empty courtyard. Puddles ripple under the heavy downpour. Hiding just out of sight, a totally drenched, mud-covered kid locks eyes with the mysterious squad. Suddenly, a dude rocking glowing red eyes spots him. He's completely baffled that some kid is actually surviving in this wrecked martial arts academy. But he steps up and respectfully calls him young warrior. With surprising chillness, the guy asks if his crew can crash there for the night to dodge the insane storm. The kid squints, totally sizing them up. He's low-key mind-blown that these intimidating strangers are being so polite, especially to a scrappy little kid like him. He figures they probably just see him as the unofficial caretaker of this busted-up academy. Matching their vibe, he throws them a nod and welcomes the crew inside. He figures they aren't villains, casually dropping the lore that he's been camping out in this empty dojo for years. He tells them they can chill literally anywhere, but sets one hard boundary: keep out of his personal sleeping pavilion. The squad bows in, thanks for the hospitality. The red-eyed boss immediately barks an order to his boys, telling them to stay far away from the kid's turf. He tells them to post up literally anywhere else, demanding a verbal confirmation from the crew. A booming "yes sir" echoes through the rain before the shadowy figures scatter into the ruins to claim their spots. As they move, the kid catches a glimpse of the character stitched on their robes, Tang. Wait, are these guys from his own clan? He's dying to know what their deal is, but honestly, he's got bigger fish to fry. He dips back to his own room, minding his own business. The whole heavy, mysterious vibe instantly vanishes the second he steps inside. It's dinner time, and this kid is absolutely hyped. He practically skips over, calling the whole squad to come grab grub. Sitting dead center in the room is a massive clay pot. He pops the lid off with a massive grin, revealing this freaky little brown bug that looks like a mutated cricket. Man, I almost missed dinner time, he mutters. These little dudes gotta be starving by now. Next, he yanks the lid off a second pot to reveal the main attraction: an absolutely massive, wicked-looking spider known as the Black Earth Tiger. This thing is a rare tarantula straight out of Hainan, China. It's an absolute unit of a species that can easily hit 20 centimeters across, rocking insane stripes that make it look like a literal tiger. Whipping out some chopsticks, the kid snags a bug and dangles it right in front of Black. While the beast chows down, the kid gets super soft, thanking the giant spider for hanging with him. Seriously, I'd have lost my mind out here without you guys, he whispers, totally meaning it. Black absolutely demolishes the snack in seconds, and the kid just beams, loving every second of it. It blows his mind that this terrifying monster used to be the size of his fingernail, but now it's already molted twice. The spider had seriously bulked up. Riding that high, the kid turns around and slides open a wooden drawer. He gently scoops out this wild neon orange lizard, covered in stark white stripes. Meet the legendary Bawang cave gecko. Just another crazy native beast, famous for its insanely patterned body and thick tail. Man, back in my past life, scoring one of these was basically impossible. I was way too broke for that, he mutters to himself. But now, they literally spawn right outside my door. He's straight up thriving, just kicking back and taking care of his creepy crawly squad. But the vibe instantly shatters when the gecko completely misses the food and chomps right down on his finger. Gah, he yelps, frantically shaking his hand to launch the little biter off. But the stubborn reptile locks its jaws tight. That sudden flash of pain instantly triggers a brutal flashback to his past life, right before he respawned in this kid's body. Back then, he was an absolute unit on YouTube, a massive content creator pulling over 1 million loyal subs. He was a legit, certified biologist, known to the internet as Spacey Fabry, dedicating his life to deadly bugs and highly venomous beasts. But his epic downfall kicked off during a massive live stream. It was supposed to be the ultimate 1 million sub special. The hype was unreal, as he ranked the top 10 deadliest snakes on the entire planet. The final boss of the stream? The legendary Black Mamba, an absolute nightmare of pure aggression. He had flown all the way to Africa to track one down, unknowingly walking right into his doom. Live on camera, he was apologizing to the chat, admitting he still hadn't bagged the elusive Mamba. He told the viewers that tracking this thing down was next-level difficult. He called for a quick break, promising to map out a second expedition to capture it. The chat was blowing up with support, hyping him up for the next stream. He was completely drained, his energy zeroed out after days of hunting nothing but ghosts. But then, the chat started spamming a bunch of weird jokes. Trolls were saying the snake probably followed him home. Plot twist. It wasn't a joke. The absolute menace he spent weeks hunting in Africa was literally coiled up right on top of his fridge. In a split second, the Mamba lunged, sinking its fangs straight into him. Snapping back to reality, the kid scowls, rubbing his finger, remembering that humiliating game over literally makes his blood boil. After risking his life out in the wild, Getting clapped in his own kitchen was exactly how his past life ended. Meanwhile, cutting back outside, one of those ancient cloaked dudes is lurking right by the kid's front steps. He taps on the wooden frame, calling out for the young warrior. Annoyed, the kid yanks the door open and casually asks what's good. The old guy tipped his hat, super grateful for the rain shelter, and tossed out a dinner invite. Their catch of the day? Freshly hunted venison. The kid's eyes totally lit up. Real meat? Say less. Up until now, his entire diet was literally just snakes and scrawny lizards. So yeah, he jumped at the offer and tagged along. A massive campfire crackled, surrounded by the crew drooling over the roasting deer. Catching the kid basically drooling over the roast, the old man chuckled. Hold your horses, it needs a bit more time on the spit. Mind if I pick your brain while we wait? Caught red-handed staring at the food, the boy flushed and gave a quick nod. The elder grilled him about his solo living situation and age. Honestly, the kid himself had no clue if he was 14 or 15. Time to spin a web of lies. Took a massive blow to the head as a toddler, so my memory is completely shot. When they double-checked if he actually lived out here in the wild by himself, he just nodded yes. He played it cool, claiming he lacked any special skills, and just survived by hunting snakes and flipping their skins for cash. The old man's jaw dropped. Way too lethal for a kid your age. But our guy just shrugged. You get used to it. One of the guys tossed over a prime cut of cooked meat to kick things off. Another elder joked that the young warrior was probably starving. The boy threw him a massive thank you, admitting it had been ages since he had real meat. One single bite, and pure heaven hit him. His mind went blank. Yep, this right here, absolute perfection. The older guys exchanged warm smiles, then asked him to lend an ear while he chowed down. The leader leaned in. They were hunting something specific, wondering if he had spotted anything freaky out here. At first, the old man held back the juicy details, but a white-haired elder nudged the patriarch. Since the kid basically saved their hides from the rain, why not spill the tea? Plus, it's not like the boy would fully grasp it anyway, and living isolated in the sticks, zero chance he leaks the intel. The patriarch gave a slow nod to his father and finally dropped the bombshell. We are tracking down a massive centipede, rocking a blue mark. Hearing that, the kid totally froze. The legendary blue spot centipede. It was a complete behemoth, so they figured our guy must have crossed paths with it. Just how massive are we talking? The patriarch's response was chilling. A fully grown one? It would gulp down a kid your size like a tiny snack. The color instantly drained from his face as he pictured a monstrous, human-eating bug. Right then, his whole theory shattered. He hadn't just time-traveled a couple hundred years into the past. Was he dropped into a completely different freaking dimension? Sensing his panic, the white-haired elder waved it off. Chill out. We're inches away from bagging it. The kid tilted his head. Wait, were they trying to catch this monster to make it a pet? The elders just stared at him, totally baffled. The white-haired dude practically died laughing. The very thought was pure comedy. You are a hilarious little warrior, the patriarch chuckled, shaking his head. Tame that nightmare? Impossible, the elder clarified. They needed its corpse to brew medicine. Now, our boy was even more confused. First, he pegged them as sketchy exotic animal smugglers. But now, this felt way darker and way weirder. How the heck does a bug cure sickness? The white-haired elder let out a heavy sigh. My granddaughter is on her deathbed. The core inside that beast is the single cure left on Earth. That was driving their insane manhunt. Gears were turning in the kid's brain as he connected the dots. The patriarch's next words sealed the deal. The sick girl wasn't just the elder's granddaughter, she was the patriarch's own flesh and blood. It clicked. These guys would literally burn the world down to save her. And yeah, bug-based medicine sounded like total cap, but he completely respected the extreme lengths a desperate parent would go. Caught between feeling bad for the dying girl and low-key pitying the bug, plus owing them for the steak, he stepped up to the plate. I might actually know where your monster is hiding, he dropped casually. The crew jolted up, eyes wide. Where? The patriarch demanded, desperation dripping from his voice. Smirking, our boy flexed his inner knowledge. Sure, a snake venom took him out in his past life, but that made him the ultimate undisputed master of anything toxic. Out of 8 million species out there, roughly 20,000 pack a venomous punch, and he had every single one locked in his mental database. Centipedes? Child's play. When it came to lethal critters, he held the entire cheat code in his hands. First up, he interrogated them on their search grid. We swept the north and east sectors around the academy, sticking to daylight hours near the riverbanks, the elder explained. The kid rolled his eyes. No wonder they struck out. Well, duh, of course you missed it, he scoffed. The elder raised a questioning brow. What exactly is that supposed to mean? The kid broke it down like a science professor. Look, centipedes fall under the arthropod phylum, specifically the Chilopoda class, he explained. They run completely cold-blooded, which means they straight up rely on their environment to keep their body temp and moisture in check. Now, unlike your average bugs, that rock, a waterproof outer shell, These guys have porous skin. That makes them super prone to drying out and losing hydration. The elders hung on to every single word. That is exactly why they hate places that are completely soaked, the boy continued. Sure, they crave high humidity, but drop them in a totally flooded swamp, they would literally drown and die off fast. Bottom line, you are wasting your time hunting the blue spot centipede deep in the jungle or anywhere near the riverbanks. Mind blown. Until this exact moment, these veterans swore centipedes only chilled inside rotting logs or soggy crevices. Yeah, maybe the tiny ones might burrow in those tight spots. But let us be real. You guys are tracking down a massive, mutated beast. A monster that size could never ghost you in the jungle or slip under some river rocks without leaving a trail. Desperate, they begged the kid to drop the actual coordinates, promising him a massive bag of loot if his intel paid off. The boy just smirked. He pointed straight west, telling them to scout the jagged, rocky peaks out there. These things love baking under sun-warmed boulders while the sun is up, he stated, and they only go hunting when it gets pitch black. Fast forward a few hours. The search party was already scaling those craggy mountains, turning the whole area upside down. The patriarch perched himself at the very peak of a razor-sharp cliff, his hawk-like gaze scanning the desolate landscape. One of his guys scrambled up beside him, whispering that maybe the young prodigy had totally played them. Calling it quits for the day, the patriarch gave the nod. He ordered them to launch the flare arrow to pull the squad back together. As the glowing arrow ripped through the twilight sky, the exhausted crew dragged themselves back to base camp, crowding around a crackling bonfire. They were completely dead on their feet, yet a tiny spark of hope remained that the kid actually knew his stuff. Why was this giant bug pulling a Houdini on them? Nobody knew, but they kept putting their faith in the boy's crazy brain power. The patriarch stayed dead silent. Then, his face twisted with pure agony as he brought up his daughter, Uyan, the undisputed #1 prodigy in the entire history of the Tong clan. He literally questioned if the heavens had cursed her. Suddenly, a scout shouted out, "The Grand Patriarch just touched down." The patriarch quickly stood up to greet him, and the whole crew tightened their circle around the blazing fire. "Did you guys strike out on the beast too?" the older man asked. The patriarch nodded grimly, firing the exact same question right back at him. The Grand Patriarch gave a heavy, depressing nod. "Uyan has 3 months left, tops." His voice dropped into a dark, gravelly tone. "At this rate, there is zero chance we track this thing down in just 10 days. A suffocating, heavy silence instantly choked the group. Breaking the tension, the patriarch proposed they push down south at dawn, since that was the only zone they had not completely swept yet. The older man agreed, offhandedly muttering about the bizarre lack of animal tracks out here. The second those words hit his ears, a massive light bulb went off in the patriarch's head. He burst into wild, echoing laughter, totally roasting himself for being so blind. "I cannot believe I missed the most obvious clue. We are standing right on top of it," he declared, his eyes burning with absolute certainty. The Grand Patriarch gave him a super confused look. "Did you actually spot something?" "Not exactly," the Patriarch fired back, "but think about what you just said. 0 tracks." The older man slowly nodded. "Exactly. Have you stepped in any animal droppings, or seen a single claw mark out here in the last 3 days?" Shaking his head, the terrifying reality finally slammed into him. He broke it down for the squad. "Do the math. A mountain range this massive, and it is completely dead? That is totally unnatural." He pieced it together. An absolute apex predator had basically claimed this entire mountain as its personal turf. The Grand Patriarch backed up the theory. Every single beast that used to live up here, they either booked it to the next county or ended up as a midnight snack. Gripping the younger man's shoulder tight, he locked eyes with him. "The blue spot centipede is right under our noses." For the first time in what felt like forever, a massive wave of hype hit the squad. They actually had a shot at saving Uyan. The Patriarch's face hardened a brutal mix of pure grief and ultimate dad energy, a guy ready to burn the world down for his kid. But right at that exact second, the entire mountain started vibrating. Everyone instantly drew their weapons, as pure panic flooded the camp. Massive, jagged fissures ripped right through the dirt. The ground under their bonfire literally caved in, and then violently exploded upward. Total chaos and absolute terror paralyzed the crew as they scrambled to figure out what was popping out of the dirt. A giant, armored leg, violently stabbed through the topsoil. Then a second one. The men could only point, completely frozen by raw fear. Even the legendary Grand Patriarch felt ice water pump through his veins as dozens of terrifying limbs erupted from the crater. There was zero mistaking it, the blue spot centipede had arrived, and it was an absolute unit. Meanwhile, miles away back at the academy, the kid just groaned as explosions echoed in the distance. "Why are they being so extra?" he mumbled to himself. "I literally just gave them a map pin, and they are out there nuking the entire mountain." Still, a massive grin crept onto his face. He was completely hyped for the show. A centipede massive enough to gulp him down in a single bite. Being a massive nerd for venomous beasts, a wicked grin spread across his face. He was absolutely dying to witness this monster firsthand. Meanwhile, high up in the jagged peaks, the brutal clash had finally drawn to a close. The blue-spotted centipede lay dead, but the squad was completely battered and bleeding. They managed to carve out its core, a glowing sapphire gem, now resting safely inside a small wooden case. Tears streamed down the faces of these hardened warriors. At long last, Uyan's salvation was literally in their hands. The clan head commanded his father to rush the bleeding fighters back to Sichuan for immediate medical care. Blindsided, the Grand Elder questioned the sudden call. The leader locked eyes with him, his voice dead serious. "We write our grudges in blood, but we carve our debts in stone." That was their absolute code of honor. Reality crashed over the Grand Elder. He had been so blinded by the desperate need to pull Uyan from the brink that he completely ignored the bleeding men around him. Bowing his head, he conceded, "You speak the exact truth." They made a vow right then and there to treat the rookie fighter like absolute royalty and hand him a blank check for his bravery. Meanwhile, back at the academy walls, our boy was dealing with a completely different kind of chaos. 3 tiny, neon yellow critters were absolutely swarming him with affection, but these were not exactly normal pets. They were literal baby blue-spotted centipedes. Honestly, they looked like fuzzy little caterpillars, especially as they nuzzled right up against his cheeks. He glanced over at his wooden storage box. Just last night, he had wiped the shells spotless and popped them onto his bedside table. Come sunrise, they had completely busted out. One of the creepy crawlies was literally snoozing dead on top of his hair. He knew they were alive in there, but this hatching speed was totally insane. Staring at the bugs glued to his clothes, he tried to carefully peel them off his shoulders. Huge mistake. They clamped down harder. To them, he was basically daddy. Let us hit rewind for a quick second to last night's madness. The kid had been obsessing over this mutant breed of insect, the kind that could literally use him as a midnight snack. Pushing into the beast's actual territory was his ultimate flex, a pure test of pure guts and grit. Driven by relentless hype, he went hunting for the monster. But after kicking up dirt in frustration, his foot connected with a random bug. He tripped, sending his fire torch crashing into the mud, yet a massive wave of relief washed over him. The 3 precious eggs he had looted were completely unharmed. Thank heavens the heavy storm had passed, or that mud would have ruined the entire haul. Knowing the clock was ticking, he scrambled to his feet. Tucking the fragile loot securely against his belt, he whispered a vow to scrub them down the second he hit home base. Snap back to current reality. Missing out on the giant boss monster sucked, but securing its offspring was a massive win. He begged the squirmy babies for just an inch of personal space. Since these bugs ran on 0 calories until their second molting phase, grocery shopping was not on the to-do list yet. Still, walking around in a living bug suit was getting seriously awkward. Then, a genius light bulb went off. Water. If he took a full plunge, maybe they would naturally detach. Smirking, he headed straight for the bathhouse. The infant bugs had absolutely 0 clue what a shower was, but one of them actually shivered like it knew exactly what was coming. Fast forward a couple of hours, and the Grand Elder rolled up to the campus grounds. Stepping up to the private quarters, he rapped his knuckles against the wood, calling out for the teen badass. Dead silence. After letting the room sit quiet for a beat, he just twisted the handle and let himself in. The room was a literal apothecary. Dried weeds, stacked vials, and bizarre potions everywhere, which instantly sparked a wild theory. Was this combat prodigy actually a secret medic? Guilt suddenly hit the old man for trespassing, and he pivoted to dip out. But a weird scratching noise completely froze him in his tracks. It echoed from a sealed clay jar. Curiosity winning over manners, he popped the lid off. Boom. A massive arachnid chilling inside. Now totally hooked, he slid open a desk drawer, revealing a slick-scaled gecko. His eyes darted around the room, lifting another lid to expose a swarm of armored beetles. Shriveled serpent skins and unhatched eggs littered the wooden shelves. His jaw basically hit the floor. This kid was running a full-blown nursery for lethal pests. Even his own elite Tang family absolute legends in the dark arts of venom could only milk toxins from wild beasts. Multiplying their breeding rates like this? Purely impossible. It hit him like a freaking truck. Pulling his daughter from death's door was just a happy little accident. The true jackpot was crossing paths with this teenage mastermind. Right on cue, the kid strolled through the doorway, throwing out a casual greeting, instantly clocking the elder's wrapped-up arm and checking if he was okay. Waving it off, the veteran swore it was just a tiny scratch. He opened his mouth to drop some heavy news, but his words choked in his throat. A suffocating, pitch-black aura suddenly flooded the room. Boom! The front entrance right behind the boy blew straight to hell. Dust swirled as a massive, menacing shadow stepped through the rubble. Stepping into the light, the intruder, looked straight out of an absolute nightmare, a hulking, one-eyed brute rocking severely charred flesh down the entire left side of his skull. Survival instincts immediately hijacking his brain, the old man shoved the teenager completely out of the blast zone, screaming at him to run for his absolute life. The kid stood there, totally paralyzed. Meanwhile, the beast unleashed an earth-shattering roar, dropping into a terrifying combat stance. It closed the gap in a flash, launching a brutal hand strike. The old man barely threw up his good arm to block, biting down on agonizing pain, but the pure kinetic force overpowered him, sending the elder flying like a rag doll. A massive dust cloud exploded on impact. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, the old man realized this freak possessed raw power rivaling his own father's. Desperate, he screamed at the young warrior to run for his life. But as the debris settled, a horrifying silhouette emerged. The monster already had the kid by the throat, hoisting him off the ground. The boy choked and gasped, while the monster threw its head back in maniacal laughter. Smirking, the beast taunted them, bragging about a little rumor that the legendary Tang clan had dragged themselves all the way to Anan. Who would have guessed the heir to the Thousand Poisons divine sovereign would be caught bleeding out and completely isolated? The elder spat back, demanding to know who this psycho even was and why he was dragging an innocent kid into their crossfire. The giant scoffed. Was his mangled face and signature iron fist really not ringing any bells? Dropping his title as the Blood Hand Rakshasa, Tang Yan snarled that the elder's father was the exact reason his face was permanently trashed. Recognition flashed in the old man's eyes. Tang Yan was supposed to be dead after catching a lethal poison palm strike and plunging off a massive cliff. Yet here he was, breathing and out for blood. The elder pleaded with him to drop the kid, volunteering to trade his own life instead. Tang Yan wasn't having it. He made a twisted vow to slaughter every single breathing soul tied to the Tang family. Under his breath, the old man cursed this demonic entity, a straight-up monster in the martial arts world, known for leaving nothing but ashes behind. Mercy simply wasn't in Tang Yan's vocabulary. The kid's face was turning a sickly ghost white from oxygen deprivation as he feebly clawed at the iron grip. It looked like a total game over. But then, out of the shadows, 3 pairs of vicious glowing eyes snapped open. A squad of tiny centipedes torpedoed straight onto Tang Yan's massive arm. It was their time to flex. These bite-sized but absolutely lethal bugs went into an absolute frenzy, sinking their fangs into his flesh, over and over. Totally freaked out by the swarm, Tang Yan instinctively jerked back, dropping the gasping kid to the dirt. Enraged, the giant roared that some stupid bugs couldn't even scratch him. But mid-sentence, his neck flared a toxic purple, and he violently hacked up a pool of black blood. He collapsed hard, thrashing on the ground in pure agony. The kid just stared wide-eyed, completely stunned that this absolute unit was suddenly a lifeless corpse. Backing away slowly, he nervously asked the elder if that guy was seriously evil. The old man, still processing the absolute chaos he just witnessed, was totally speechless. His jaw was basically on the floor, but slowly, a massive, knowing grin spread across his face. This kid wasn't just some random bystander. He instantly knew he had to recruit this kid into the Tang clan, no matter what. Fast forward a few days after Tang Yan's spectacular downfall, a heavy sigh broke the silence. Our young hero was playing nurse, gently pressing a cool, damp rag against the resting elder's forehead. The old man mumbled a weak thank you, but the kid just brushed it off, casually suggesting that instead of being grateful, the geezer could finally drop the coordinates on where his squad was hiding out, so he could reunite with them. Then reality hit him. He definitely couldn't ditch a wounded old man, and calling a doctor out here was literally impossible. Waving off the concern, the elder promised he wasn't kicking the bucket anytime soon, and just needed a couple days of solid sleep to bounce back. The kid's mind was blown by how incredibly chill the old man was acting, with half his body basically wrecked. He scolded the elder, telling him to stop acting like it was just a scratch when he was in critical condition. Smirking, the old man bragged that martial artists were just built different. Totally clueless, the boy tilted his head and asked if martial artists were those crazy dudes who casually levitated and spammed fireballs out of nowhere. The elder chuckled, explaining that while not everyone was walking around like an anime protagonist, that was honestly a hilarious way to sum it up. Our main guy was absolutely starstruck. It hit him right then. This was the ultimate reality check that he was deeply stranded in a whole different dimension. Because honestly, house-sized centipedes didn't belong in normal reality. Breaking the silence, the elder admitted he owed his entire existence to the kid who clutched up and saved him. Pushing past the pain, he gave a proper, formal introduction. He was Tang Chil-san, a high-ranking member of the legendary Tang family. Dropping his guard, our hero finally dropped his own name. He was So Rang. Chul-san immediately picked up on the translation. So for little, and Rang for dragon. Little dragon. He honestly thought it slapped. Leaning in, Chul-san admitted he had a mountain of questions, and So Rang just nodded, giving him the green light to ask away. Chul-san got straight to the point. Were those freaky little bugs hiding in his clothes actually venomous? Gently petting the tiny creature's belly, Sorang confirmed that yeah, they were packing serious heat. They were the infamous blue-spotted centipedes. That name drop made Cheol-san literally shoot straight up in bed. Mind completely blown, he demanded to know how on earth a random kid managed to tame those lethal beasts. He added that he'd spotted a whole bunch of other toxic creepy crawlies lurking around while he was recovering, asking if the kid was running some kind of secret monster breeding operation. Sorang chuckled, warning him it was going to be a massive lore dump, and asked if he was ready for story time. Cheol-san swore he was all ears. Taking a breath, Sorang kicked things off, starting right from the moment he found that very first glowing blue egg. By the time he wrapped up, Cheol-san just stared, needing to double-check that this crazy kid seriously hatched the apex predator from scratch. Smirking, Sorang just gave a confident nod. When Sorang casually dropped the exact time that egg would hatch, Cheol-sang's brain completely short-circuited. How in the world did this kid pull that off? Sorang just told him to hold his horses. Sliding open a wooden drawer, he proudly whipped out 2 little lizards. The first one rocked a standard brown body with flashy yellow and white stripes down its tail. Just your basic striped reptile. But the second one? Sorang explained his selective breeding process, focusing on the ones with thicker white bands. The result was crazy, a brown lizard sporting a pure, solid white tail. 0 stripes. Cheol-sang stared wide-eyed, asking if Sorang had literally custom-engineered that color palette. Blushing slightly, our boy cheerfully nodded, admitting he only did it because it looked aesthetically pleasing. Cheol-sang snapped back to reality, immediately asking the million-dollar question. Could Sorang crossbreed highly toxic creatures to spawn an entirely new, mega-lethal species? Sorang paused, gears turning in his head, realizing the math actually checked out. He broke it down, explaining that if they pinpointed the strongest toxins, synthesizing a super poison was totally doable. He barely finished his sentence before Cheol-sang practically screamed, "Are you serious right now? Is that actually viable?" The sheer hype radiating from the old man caught Sorang totally off guard. Without missing a beat, Cheol-sang aggressively recruited him to join his clan. Sorang stood there absolutely bewildered, but Cheol-sang dialed up the bribery, swearing that if he signed on, they would dump their entire martial arts arsenal into his brain, hook him up with endless premium elixirs, rare herbs, and literally any poison he craved. The elder hyped him up, claiming a genius like Sorang could easily tame or breed the top 10 legendary toxic beasts of the Central Plains. And just to sweeten the deal, Cheol-sang leaned in with a smirk, adding, "Not gonna flex, but backing us means you get a shot at meeting one of the Central Plains' 3 most gorgeous girls." Sorang immediately threw his hands up, yelling, "Hold up a second." He demanded the elder repeat his last sentence. Amused, Cheol-sang chuckled, noting that youth could not hide a man's true instincts. He started yapping about these legendary beauties, but Sorang ruthlessly cut him off. "Scrap the girls. Tell me more about those top 10 venomous beasts. Are we talking blue-spotted centipede levels of cool here?" Cheol-sang smirked and promised him, "Absolutely. Sure, your little blue-spotted bug is a powerhouse, but it is basically bottom tier compared to these absolute monsters. We are talking massive scorpions, glowing golden frogs, literally whatever wild stuff you can dream up. The reality goes way harder." A satisfied grin crept onto Cheol-sang's face as he watched the bait sink deep. The young warrior's eyes were practically sparking with obsession. Cut to 2 days later, where the entire Tang clan was having a collective meltdown over the sudden comeback of Takong, the bloodhand Rakshasa. Cheol-sang broke down how the villain had been grinding in secret, polishing his lethal techniques, until his power level was terrifyingly close to his father's. The clan officials put 2 and 2 together. If their patriarch nearly died to this guy, Takang must have cracked the realm of 10,000 poisons. They started praising the patriarch for securing the win, but he instantly shut that down, dropping the massive plot twist that he was not the one who packed Takong up, but rather, this random teenager did. The Tang elders were completely floored. One dude immediately lunged forward to aggressively shake Sarang's hand, endlessly thanking him for saving the boss of the Sichuan Tang clan. They even started questioning if Sarang was actually some ancient master, using a hardcore anti-aging technique. Utterly lost, our boy shot Cheol-sang a desperate look. Catching onto the awkward vibe, the patriarch nudged Sorang to drop a live demonstration. The clan elders sensed the flex incoming and locked their eyes on the kid. Sorang gave his chest a light tap, summoning his tiny hit squad. His robes rustled slightly before 3 weirdly cute centipedes slithered out, sending a collective gasp ripping through the room. As the little beasts revealed themselves, the venom experts instantly recognized them and completely stopped breathing. Cheol-sang formally introduced them as blue-spotted centipedes, revealing that these exact miniature bugs were the ones who sent Takong straight to the afterlife. The clan members swarmed him with questions about the toxins, completely mind-blown that a kid successfully tamed even one of them. The patriarch smirked, stating this was exactly why they needed to draft him immediately. However, Sorong pumped the brakes, saying he needed time to process the offer. One elder aggressively hyped up the pitch, calling it the opportunity of a lifetime. Cheol-sang interrupted, declaring they needed to move out before things got messy. Confused, Sorang asked if they were still hunting for loot. The old man paused, his expression turning grim, explaining that Takang practiced the blood hand poison claw, a purely demonic skill that demanded fresh human blood and bone marrow to level up. A cold shiver violently spiked down Sorang's spine. Cheol-song warned that if Takang left behind hidden manuals or secret apprentices, they had to wipe them out completely to prevent massive future disasters, guaranteeing this twisted martial art stayed buried forever, especially since certain bad actors might be lurking. The girls were taken hostage, meaning a rescue mission was officially on the table. The patriarch turned to Soran, practically begging for his expertise, since the guy knew Hainan Island like the back of his hand. Soran paused, weighing his options. Fully locking in with the clan felt like a massive lifetime commitment. It was basically like doing a deep dive into a company's toxic work culture and checking the boss's vibe before actually signing an employment contract. Ultimately, he agreed to roll with them. Once the patriarch bounced back, the crew hyped Soren up for making the right call. Soren just shrugged it off, dropping a cool line about how saving lives was a no-brainer, so obviously he was totally down for the ride. But behind that chill facade, he was secretly scheming, planning to use this whole rescue op to scout out the Tang clan's true power. After all, top tier. Fighters always run a background check on potential allies. It took Cheol-san 3 whole days to heal up. Following that, the squad posted up at a random settlement near the ruined martial arts academy, hoping to pinpoint Takan's hidden base. They started grilling the locals about anyone vanishing into thin air. One elderly guy mentioned that every year, 1 or 2 unlucky souls just evaporated into the deep jungle, but the disappearances were totally random, with zero pattern. Cheol-san rubbed his chin, completely stumped. They tossed a quick thanks to the village head for the intel. The guy bowed respectfully, claiming it was an absolute honor to help out the legendary Tang clan patriarch. The crew dipped out, painfully aware they were still sitting on 0 solid leads. Strolling through the dense woods, Soran pointed out that the settlement felt completely ordinary. Cheol-san chimed in, reminding him that when Ong completely ambushed them out of nowhere, it went down right in this zone, yet hunting down his actual hideout felt utterly impossible. Soran also felt the vibe was off. How were there literally 0 footprints or clues? Suddenly, a massive light bulb went off in his head. Yo, Cheol-san, do you remember the exact words Ong dropped when he pulled up? Cheol-san sheepishly admitted his memory was totally foggy, considering he was busy getting brutally blasted away by the impact of Aang's attack. Soran jogged his memory, stating that Ong explicitly bragged about hearing the Tang clan had touched down in Hainan. That heavily implied a rat had leaked their location. The math was actually super simple. They just needed to retrace the exact route. The Tang clan took through the island. Soran pitched the idea of flashing a sketch of Aang's face around to dig up clues. The rest of the squad stared at him, absolutely mind-blown by his insane big brain energy. If some local snitch spotted the Tang crew and ran straight to Ong, tracking them down would crack the whole case wide open. They immediately hit the road, eventually rolling into this incredibly depressing, gloomy town. A Tang clan subordinate spoke up, confirming that based on the dockside rumors back in Hainan port, this was definitely the spot. The elder gestured around, explaining that the ally tribe called this place home. Hoping to avoid throwing hands, they noticed the locals literally looked like walking zombies. The Tang crew shouted out, trying to see if anyone was actually awake. One resident locked eyes with them, instantly recognizing their presence, and demanded to know why they were trespassing. An older guy, giving off major village chief energy, dragged himself over while clutching a tiny girl's hand, flanked by twin bodyguards. Every single one of them looked deathly ill. Cheol-san stepped up, dropping a super formal introduction. Soran watched from the sidelines, his eyes locked on the kid who looked like she could pass out any second. Suddenly, the pieces clicked. He scanned the surrounding crowd, noticing their vacant, hollowed-out faces, almost like they were massively drugged out of their minds. The chief heavily doubled down, swearing that 0 people had gone missing, and absolutely nothing weird was going down. He aggressively tried to shoo them away, but the Tang elder caught a massive red flag and called it out, pointing out that the math was not mathing. There were way too many empty houses for this tiny crowd. The chief violently cut him off, sweating bullets while insisting they were just imagining things. For the second time, he practically begged the squad to pack up and leave. Cheol-san and Soran shot each other a bewildered look. Cheol-san leaned in, whispering to Soran that this was super messed up, considering the ally were historically known for being incredibly chill and welcoming. Soran stayed dead silent, his gut screaming that this place was hiding a dark secret. Out of nowhere, the little girl's eyes rolled back, and she collapsed hard. The entire squad froze in shock. The chief frantically scooped her into his arms, tears absolutely streaming down his rough face. "Malin, please stay with me," he wailed, his voice cracking with pure desperation. "You are literally all I have left." The raw agony in his scream hit deep. He was visibly shattering at the thought of losing her to this sickness. Cheol-san immediately closed the distance, offering up whatever basic medical skills he had in his arsenal. "Let me step in and check her out." The chief flinched, deeply suspicious. "Are you using Central Plains medicine?" he demanded, his guard way up. Cheol-san nodded firmly. "Look, I am not a full-blown doctor, but I know my way around a pulse. Just let me run a quick diagnostic." The exhausted leader finally cracked and gave him the green light. Taking a shaky breath, he spilled the horrifying truth. An unknown, lethal plague had been ripping through the village. It was slaughtering the youth and leaving the adults in endless agony. Cheol-san swore on his life that he would do whatever it took to cure them. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the chief thanked him profusely. He then snapped at his frozen bodyguards for just standing there, acting like statues, barking orders at them to escort the impromptu medic and his crew inside the cabin. Walking in, Soren tapped a Tang clan fighter on the shoulder, asking, "Does the elder actually have a background in healing?" The guy nodded, dropping some heavy lore. The Tang clan's entire combat system revolves heavily around lethal toxins, which ironically makes us top-tier medical experts. If you want to master our deadly arts, you absolutely have to understand human anatomy inside and out first. Soren chewed on that mind-blowing fact. He always figured the Tang clan, they are literally just a squad of poison-wielding assassins. If I actually end up joining this Tang clan, Soren muttered to himself, I would way rather spec into their healing arts than mess around with those terrifying toxic techniques. The guy whispered under his breath. Sometimes we kidnap villains, pump them full of venom, and just watch them tweak out. A cold sweat dropped down Soren's neck. Was that not straight-up human experimentation? The more he obsessed over it, the creepier it got. Outside, the village streets were an absolute ghost town. A heavy sigh echoed from inside one of the rundown shacks. Cheol-sang stepped back, explaining he had just channeled his own inner ki. To stabilize the little girl's ragged breathing, the village chief practically threw himself to the floor. "Please, you have to save my granddaughter," he begged, sounding completely broken. Cheol-sang narrowed his eyes. "Her pulse is totally out of whack. Has her heart always been this fragile?" The chief shook his head frantically. "No, it is not just her. Half the village is dropping like flies from this freaky mystery plague. That is exactly why I tried to chase you guys out." Cheol-sang let the silence hang for a second before speaking up. "I happen to carry some top-tier heart meds. Round up everybody who is sick. We are going to try something crazy." Tears streaming down his wrinkled face, the village chief nodded like his life depended on it. Soren just stood back, locking his eyes on Cheol-sang. Cut to later that night. A Tang clan subordinate was trailing right behind the patriarch. "Patriarch, you have been grinding non-stop treating these folks." Cheol-sang just gave a tired nod. "Thanks, Gupai. Did you figure out what we are dealing with?" Gupai broke down the symptoms. "It is totally bizarre. Total burnout, bulging eyes, a low-grade fever, and a pulse that is all over the place. The worst cases are literally experiencing heart failure." Cheol-sang furrowed his brow. "Where did Soren go?" "Probably passed out after carrying the team all day," Gupai replied. "I left the kid crashing in his room." Cheol-sang nodded. "Makes sense. Dude has been keeping up with us without a shred of martial arts training, so naturally, he is dead on his feet. He decided to go check on the kid himself." Gupai led the way down the hall. Pushing the door open, they found Soren completely knocked out, snoring into the mattress. His 3 pet centipedes were chilling quietly in a woven basket right next to him. Cheol-sang's eyes suddenly darted. He spotted something moving. Without a second thought, the patriarch closed the distance, wound up his hand, and smacked the living daylights out of Soren's cheek. Soren jolted awake, like he had been electrocuted. "What the actual hell?" he screamed, clutching his burning face. He glared daggers at Cheol-sang. "Why would you do that? That freaking hurt." The old man did not even flinch. "You had a bug on your face." Soren narrowed his eyes. "Yeah, right. I do not believe a single word coming out of your mouth." Cheol-sang let out a heavy sigh. "Look, kid, I just came to check on you before turning in, and I saw a creepy crawler chilling on your mug. This whole area is crawling with venomous pests, so my instincts just took over." He flicked the dead bug over for Soren to see. Soren's eyes went wide, and the puzzle pieces instantly snapped together in his brain. "Hold up," Cheol-sang. "You said all the patients were dealing with irregular heartbeats, right?" The patriarch nodded. Soren stared at the crushed insect, and a smirk crept onto his face. "Bingo. I know exactly what is wrecking this village," he said, pointing at the carcass. "This nasty little guy is a kissing bug. It falls under the Reduviidae family of insects." "A kissing bug? Yeah, It gets that weird name because it loves to bite right around your eyes or lips, stealthily slurping your blood. Way worse than any mosquito. People also call it the vampire bug or the assassin bug. The Tang clan duo was stunned into dead silence. Soren did not miss a beat. The bite itself is not the issue. It is what is hiding inside its gut. This thing is packed to the brim with lethal parasites. He paused for dramatic effect before dropping the absolute bomb. This plague is American trypanosomiasis, better known in the medical world as Chagas disease. The room went completely pin-drop silent. This bad boy easily ranks among the top 7 deadliest diseases known to mankind, Soren declared. He whipped his head toward the village chief. Tell me, are the village dogs acting sluggish too? Getting tired super fast? The chief nodded instantly. Yes. Does that mean we can save my granddaughter? Soren took a deep breath. 100%. We just need the right treatment. Cheol Sang cracked a massive grin. Looks like we nailed down the root cause. Gupai nodded, a new level of respect in his eyes. No kidding, this kid is hiding some serious big brain energy. Soren caught them exchanging that knowing look and instantly put his guard up. Okay, what are you guys plotting? Cheol Sang just smirked. He casually reminded the boy exactly who he was dealing with. The legendary Tang clan. Soren scowled, visibly annoyed and totally lost, which honestly just cracked the older guys up. Cheol Sang shifted gears, breaking down the dark lore of Gu, basically weaponized venomous parasites and dark magic, bred by absolute psychos back in China. These twisted individuals used infested bugs to inflict mind-bending torture, or literally puppet other human beings. Soren was completely mind-blown. Cheol Sang nodded grimly, pointing out that countless martial arts masters had been brutally taken out by Gu or brainwashed into committing unspeakable crimes, like slaughtering their own flesh and blood, or becoming mindless attack dogs for these evil overlords. Because of that nightmare, martial artists everywhere had been hunting, desperately for an ultimate counter-poison. Cheol Sang revealed they were talking about legendary cures that could violently purge the Gu, straight out of a victim's system, or just melt the parasite from the inside out. It finally clicked for Soren. Then, Cheol Sang hit him with a question. Who on earth could possibly pull off crafting a god-tier cure like that? Without missing a beat, the patriarch proudly flexed that, obviously, it was the mighty Tang clan. He confidently declared they possessed an elixir so potent it could dissolve a worm the size of a grown man's fist. A tiny bug chilling inside a human body? Barely a threat. He then whipped out the curse-dissolving orb, pointing out that even a single drop of this miracle cure would absolutely get the job done. Sorong hyped it up on the outside, but internally, he was totally side-eyeing the dramatic name for what was basically just a superpowered dewormer. The Tong clan locked eyes with the village chief, swearing they'd pull his granddaughter back from the brink. And just like that, the villagers actually started bouncing back, with the chief's granddaughter leading the charge. A massive wave of relief washed over the old man. The whole village immediately rolled out the red carpet, treating the crew like absolute royalty. Their incredibly wholesome, upbeat vibes proved all the good rumors about them right. Cholsong didn't hesitate to admit they'd be completely cooked without Sorang stepping up, since he was the mastermind who figured out what was actually making everyone sick. He made sure the crowd knew Sorang was the real MVP. The locals totally hyped him up as their literal savior, showering him with endless praise. Sure, the Tang family's secret stash was what physically cured them, but Cheolsang gladly handed Sorang all the spotlight. Seeing the kid get so much love honestly melted the tough guy's heart, making him feel like they were cheering for him instead. The overwhelming gratitude hit Sorang right in the feels, especially when the crowd started tossing him into the air, like he just won a championship game. Once things cooled down, the village chief pulled Cheolsang aside, bringing up their hushed chat from back when they first entered the town. Cheolsang raised an eyebrow, and the chief finally spilled the tea about the missing locals, his memory suddenly clicking. Cheolsang demanded all the details. Desperate to return the massive favor, the old man dropped a deeply unsettling story he'd picked up from a local woman. She originally hailed from a neighboring settlement and had warned him about a terrifying tragedy that struck years ago, leaving several people vanished without a trace. It sounded like they finally stumbled onto a solid lead. Cheolsang demanded the exact coordinates, and the chief pointed dead west. The second they arrived, the foul stench of rotting flesh violently assaulted their noses. Bingo, they hit the jackpot. Cheolsang scanned the horrific wasteland. Rotting corpses, trash, and crawling bugs littered the dirt, while a toxic haze practically choked the air. Gupe frantically warned Sorang to look away from the absolute bloodbath, but the kid's eyes were already glued to the carnage. One of the guys jokingly pointed at something bizarre, a random golden chicken leg, but he was dead wrong. It was actually a mythical bird chilling in the ruins. This thing was rocking a vibrant golden tail and a crazy neon blend of purple, pink, and black feathers, giving it this insanely majestic, otherworldly aura. Disgusted that this flashy bird was literally disrespecting the dead, one of the hot-headed grunts scooped up a rock to chuck at it. Chulsang lunged to stop him, but the rock was already airborne. It completely missed the target, but definitely succeeded in pissing off the creature. The guy was raging, but Chulsang slammed a heavy hand on his shoulder, his instincts screaming that they just messed with the wrong beast. The bird violently snapped its wings open, unleashing a thick, neon cloud of toxic mist. Sarang's jaw dropped as he watched the deadly gas literally melt the solid bones on the ground. Someone immediately clamped a hand over his mouth to shield him, while Chulsang screamed at the squad to run for their lives. Yanking Sorang to safety while covering his face, Chulsang revealed they were dealing with a Gino, the legendary poisonous feather bird. After sprinting to a safe zone, the panicked squad huddled around their leader. Chulsang broke down exactly what they were up against. He described a massive 5-foot wingspan, a razor-sharp bronze beak, and a torso packed with lethal purple plumage. The moment it flexed those wings in anger, the sheer toxicity of its presence would blacken and instantly slaughter everything breathing in its zip code. With a natural gold crown resting on its head, the beast looked like absolute royalty. Chulsang deadpanned that this was unmistakably a Gino. Sarang's eyes practically lit up like fireworks, eagerly asking if this was actually one of the 10 great poisonous creatures. Chulsang gave a grim nod, casually dropping that the Gino wasn't just on the list, it was at the absolute top, literally reigning as the king of poison. Sarang was buzzing with pure adrenaline. In his head, even the deadliest snakes and scorpions back on Earth looked like harmless pets next to this monster. He was absolutely mind-blown that walking, breathing biochemical weapons just freely roamed this fantasy world. Chulsang pointed out that the Gino was likely camping out here because the area was swarming with venomous snakes. Legend had it that this insane apex predator strictly snacked on the heads of venomous serpents. Sarang asked if running into one was a normal Tuesday. Chulsang scoffed, it was insanely rare. Like, maybe catch a glimpse of one once a century kind of rare. Sarang was utterly starstruck, making Chulsang highly suspicious of why the kid was getting so hyped. Then Sarang dropped a bomb, asking if they could actually capture it, completely short-circuiting the Tang clan members' brains. Chulsang let out a wild laugh, asking if the kid seriously had a death wish. Sarang confidently nodded, but admitted he wasn't trying to get melted by the toxic smog. A sly smirk crept onto Chulsang's face, catching exactly how obsessed Sarang was with the top 10 beasts. If he really wanted it that bad, Chulsang teased, there was a loophole. Sarang instantly perked up, completely shocked. Chulsang laid out the facts, explaining that anyone who fully mastered the Tang clan's secret poison arts practically became a walking cheat code, immune to all toxins, including the Gino's terrifying mist. With their signature martial arts, he could literally face tank any deadly substance in existence. But then, hitting him with a massive reality check, Chulsang smugly added that they strictly gatekept these skills from outsiders, and even the clan leader couldn't bend that rule. Without missing a beat, Sarang excitedly asked what it takes to join the family. He would unlock those insane techniques for him. Sarang just had one burning question though. Would building up this poison immunity actually let him tank the Gino's toxic hit? Chulsang totally played it cool, dropping a confident yes to hype him up. He threw down the ultimate offer, join up right now, and he would teach him every single secret, making absolutely sure Sarang maxed out his true potential. But then he dropped a heavy ultimatum, warning him that if he dragged his feet making a choice, that golden ticket to train under him might just vanish. Feeling the heat of the moment, Sarang officially locked in his spot with the clan. He was totally hyped to level up under the guidance of Chulsang, instantly swapping out the elder title to call him patriarch. Chulsang flashed this devious little smirk, totally playing it off like he had not just masterminded the kid into saying yes. He looked right at him, declaring that from this second forward, Sarang was officially part of the bloodline. Smash cut to a whole different scene, where glaring traces of the blood hand technique had just been exposed. Gupon flagged down the boss, tossing him a ragged notebook scavenged from the wreckage. Chulsang flipped through the pages, his eyes locking onto the truth. It was the legendary Blood Hand Poison Claw secret manual. Sarang visibly cringed, totally creeped out that the whole thing was literally written in human blood. Brushing off the eerie vibes, Chulsang made the call to roll out. Sarang asked if Sichuan was their next drop zone. Chulsang nodded, calling it their best play since they were now packing both the blue-spotted centipede's core and that forbidden manual. Sarang chimed in, begging for a quick pit stop at the academy to bust his squad out of lockdown. Chulsang gave it the green light, figuring Sarang needed to pack up his loot anyway. They hit the road, but glancing over his shoulder, a random glint caught Sarang's eye. He pointed it out, and when they dug it up, they found a glowing purple feather dropped straight from the Gino. The whole crew just froze, staring at this insanely rare drop in dead silence. Chulsang snatched it up, tossing it to Sarang as an epic welcome to the family bonus. Sarang grabbed it, his eyes practically sparkling with hype, and fired off a huge thank you. Chulsang played it cool, saying it was all good, except for the kid's choice of titles. He hinted that Sarang should swap out his title right after the ceremony. Wait, ceremony? Sarang's brain totally blue-screened, wondering if he was about to face some intense initiation ritual. Cut back to the Tang clan base. The big boss himself, Great Patriarch Tang Mun, who had bolted out of there earlier, finally crashed through the gates. The dude was running on fumes, but 0 breaks were taken. His first breath went straight into demanding to see Huan. His squad practically carried him inside, dropping the massive update. She was still clinging to life. The heavy wooden doors slammed open, and Tang Mun yelled out Huan's name. The room completely froze, totally shell-shocked by his sudden entrance. He locked eyes with his daughter-in-law, dropping the epic bombshell. He secured the cure. He whipped out the blue-spotted centipede's core. Just seeing that glowing lifesaver made the daughter-in-law completely shatter into tears. The tension spiked as they prepped the dose for Huan. Mun felt his heart literally break watching the poor girl agonize. She was standing on death's door, but thank heavens he clutched the timeline. Her mom was straight up pleading for him to push the meds immediately. Mun gently fed the core to his granddaughter, and boom, this insane neon blue aura just erupted around her body. He pressed a trembling finger to her wrist, tracking the faint heartbeat. The entire room was holding their breath, absolutely praying for those eyelids to flutter open. They were glued to her, desperately hoping for a literal miracle. Fast forward, Sorang was fighting for his life against pure exhaustion. Like, he knew the Central Plains were massive, but this map scale was just ridiculously huge. Starting all the way from Henan, they hopped a boat down to Onju, dragged themselves through Nanjing, and after grinding out a grueling month-and-a-half road trip, they finally spawned in Sichuan, pulling up right to the Tang clan's legendary estate. Gupan, practically vibrating with massive hype, flexed to Sorang that they had officially hit the Tang family turf. Sorang's jaw literally unhinged, totally stunned by the absolute flex of their massive front gates. They casually dropped that the Tangs literally owned the entire mountain, hence the badass name, Tang Clan Mountain. Sorang gulped hard, his brain short-circuiting at that insane level of wealth. The entire Tang roster flooded out to welcome their patriarch back home. Sorang was completely shook, because the sheer headcount of their members was off the charts. He couldn't even fathom that every single one of these people was actually blood-tied to the Tangs. Suddenly, a girl rocking a stunning red outfit just dashed through the dense mob. She screamed out for her dad, absolutely bawling her eyes out. It was Huan. The pure, wholesome joy radiating off her was totally undeniable. And off to the side, Sorang was literally starstruck. Chulsang let out the biggest breath of his life, thanking the heavens his little girl was still breathing. Huan just crash-tackled him into a massive hug, whispering endless apologies. Sorang's jaw was completely on the floor over how unreal she looked. Like, the dude had actually pulled a literal celeb back in his past life, but he had never, ever crossed paths with anyone flexing an aura this blindingly gorgeous. Chulsang tapped Sorang's shoulder, dropping a smirk as he set up the ultimate intro. Boom, he presented his beloved daughter, Huan. Sorang's brain just straight up lagged. He stumbled over his words, asking if this absolute goddess was the catch Chulsang was hinting at earlier on their trip. Flashback to Sorang totally trash-talking some random weeds and flowers, which perfectly teed up Chulsang's legendary flower metaphor. Hearing this, Huan instantly turned beet red. Chulsang grinned, casually dropping the nuke that this stunning girl standing right there was the exact flower Sorang had been totally disrespecting. Sorang's soul literally left his body. A massive tidal wave of pure cringe washed over him as his epic screw-up finally registered. He literally never, ever imagined that he had just totally fumbled the bag on scoring such a top-tier match. The absolute princess of the Tang Syndicate was not just dropping jaws with her looks, but she was entirely lethal, famously feared in the streets as the poisonous flower, Tang Huan. Ever since she was a little kid, Huan had been lugging around this massive, dark emotional baggage. Back in the day, she caught the Boomer Elders absolutely roasting her potential. They totally trashed her combat stats, but they did admit her visuals were peak, hyping her up as one of the clan's legendary top 3 beauties. They even started scheming up an arranged marriage to ship her off to some high-tier groom. One of the old geezers even. The elder dropped a massive bombshell take a second wife, but the patriarch, he completely shut it down, leaving the old man absolutely speechless. Eavesdropping on that intense exchange, Huan finally realized her parents had been right all along. She desperately needed to flex her worth to the clan elders by dominating the martial arts scene. Her ultimate goal, proving she was a massive asset to the family, regardless of her gender. But let's be real, rushing the process only triggers epic mistakes. Pushing your limits too hard destroys your foundation. Her reckless ambition literally spawned an inner demon, triggering a catastrophic chi deviation. that completely derailed her training. Right at that terrifying climax, Huan's eyes snapped open. Surrounding her bed were the Grand Patriarch, her mom, and 2 clan elites. Seeing her daughter conscious, her mother let out a massive breath she didn't know she was holding, while heavy tears streamed down Huan's face. Choking on her sobs, she frantically apologized to her mom. She just wanted to carry the clan's weight, but now her internal energy core was completely shattered. Her grandpa instantly called her a foolish brat, demanding to know if this meltdown was just guilt over stressing out her dad and him. He then dropped a massive reality check. She had actually unlocked the legendary 100 poisons milestone she had been grinding for. He ordered her to wipe those tears and lock in. Huan was totally mind-blown hearing about the 100 poisons. Staring down at her intensely glowing aura, she desperately asked what was happening. The Grand Patriarch sat back, announcing it was story time. He revealed how a totally mysterious young warrior didn't just pull her back from the brink of death, but flat out gifted her the 1,000 poisons constitution way better than just 100. Snapping back to the present, Huan grilled him about that weird weed comparison. Soren was caught completely off guard again. The sheer embarrassment of calling Chilsang's elite daughter a literal weed hit him hard, all because he was totally hyperfixated on the lore of the 10 great poisonous creatures. He mentally kicked himself, vowing to do some serious soul-searching. Trying to play it cool, he deflected, claiming the Patriarch dragged the joke way too far. Gathering his composure, he finally hit Huan with a polite greeting. The older clan members were practically glowing as they watched this awkward teenage chemistry unfold. Soren stepped up, formally introducing himself, and casually mentioned how hyped he was to see her looking fully recovered after hearing about her brutal illness. Matching his energy, she introduced herself as Huan, the Poison Flower, hitting him with a massive thank you for saving her life. Swearing she would never forget his clutch assist, she left Soren completely spellbound by her unreal beauty. Chilsang smirked, asking for his honest thoughts. Out of nowhere, a phantom voice echoed in Soren's skull, making him realize someone was using a high-level, telepathic sound transmission. Through the mind link, Chilsang proudly demanded to know if Soren thought his daughter was an absolute 10, and if he was down to get to know her better. Flash forward a bit, and Soren was finally chilling in a massive, steaming bath. His deadly centipedes were just vibing peacefully in their basket nearby. Man was so completely drained, he felt like his HP was at 0 and he could pass out instantly. The exhaustion was written all over his face, but catching a glimpse of his creepy crawly pets, a smirk crept up, especially when one actually woke up and seemed to smile right back. Normally, these vicious bugs would latch onto him like glue. Yet, when he casually warned them that boiling bathwater was a bad idea and pointed to the bucket, they crawled right in like they actually understood English. It was wild, pure main character energy, having bugs that actually processed commands. Earlier, Chilsang had dropped the lore that these specific centipedes instantly reacted to killing intent. Right now, 2 of them were wide awake, locking eyes with him. He jokingly called them out, saying it was super awkward having them stare while he was buck naked. Hilariously, the 2 bugs immediately ducked into the bucket to hide, sending Soren into a fit of laughter. It triggered a flashback to Gupai, claiming these weren't just bugs, but literal spiritual beasts. He pinned that thought, vowing to deep dive into their crazy stats later. Meanwhile, over in another elite pavilion, the ultimate family summit was going down around a massive table. We're talking the Grand Patriarch, the current Patriarch, his wife, and Huan, all locked in a serious meeting. Chilsang broke the ice, officially announcing he was handing over the East Wing suite to the young warrior. Plot twist, that specific room was a super traditional setup, exclusively reserved for married couples. The Grand Patriarch raised an eyebrow, questioning if this kid's stats were actually that overpowered. Chilsang didn't hesitate to confirm, explaining that while it looked like a totally random NPC encounter, the real jackpot wasn't the coincidence, it was the guy's insane potential. He hyped up Soren's god-tier knowledge of toxic beasts, casually dropping the fact that the kid had actually managed to slay Ong. On top of that epic feat, he had tracked down mythic-tier mobs like the poisonous feathered bird, and literally incubated a clutch of blue-spotted centipede eggs with his own bare hands. Hearing this massive flex, the Grand Patriarch instantly realized his son had secured an absolute cheat code of an ally. The spotlight rapidly shifted to Huan. Chilsang looked his daughter dead in the eye, dropping the bomb that he wanted this OP young warrior to be her future husband, straight up asking for her reaction. Huan's brain went into overdrive, processing the sheer weight of that proposal. The reality hit her like a truck, and she went dead silent. Armed with the ridiculously rare 1,000 poisons constitution, she was burning with the need to prove she was the ultimate asset to her bloodline. Breaking the silence, she told her dad she completely understood the assignment as a true member of the Tang clan, but if this guy wanted to claim her hand, she was going to test his worthiness herself. With that savage mic drop, she bolted straight out of the room, leaving Cheol-sung drowning in a sea of pure awkwardness. Our boy Saran better watch his back because, gorgeous or not, this girl was basically a walking hazard. She was packing some serious emotional thorns too. Hwan bolted out of there, completely crushed, now that she'd actually unlocked the body of 1,000 poisons. Giving up meant the elders would write her off forever. She made a hard call. It was time to put this young warrior under a microscope, analyzing everything from his combat chops to his actual vibe. Cut to Soran, totally stressing over his next move. Figuring she was probably holding a massive grudge, he turned to his literal centipede kids for some life advice. Out of nowhere, Hwan pulled up looking absolutely breathtaking, totally catching him off guard. She dropped an apology and straight up asked for his hand. Cue the maximum awkwardness. He gave it to her like a golden retriever offering a paw, his face burning up. He stammered out that he didn't know why she was rushing things, saying couples usually take it slow and get to know each other first. He kept rambling about how there are actual steps to romance. Hwan just stared at him, totally clueless about what he was getting at. When the light bulb finally clicked, her face went straight up crimson. Panicking, she scrambled to shut him down, yelling that he had it all wrong. The cringe hit Soran like a truck as reality sank in. The silence that followed was physically painful. Hwan aggressively clarified that she wasn't hitting on him, she literally just needed to check his pulse. She figured her coming on too strong completely threw him off. Soran just wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Sitting down beside him, she tried to smooth things over, apologizing for jump-scaring him, and acting so unhinged. She pointed out that even though he was just a kid and not even legal age yet, he actually had a really solid head on his shoulders. So, she spilled the tea. As Hwan laid out her backstory, Soran tuned in completely. The whole thing sounded straight out of a medieval soap opera. Being the sole direct heir meant Hwan was constantly dodging the toxic scheming of the side branches who were obsessed with securing the bloodline. The elders were basically plotting to auction her off to a top-tier husband. They were even crunching the numbers on how sore. Hwan gave him a quick heads up, apologizing because she needed to run a little test on him. She made it crystal clear, no matter what she found, she had zero intentions of crossing him. He was literally her lifesaver, and she planned to treat him like absolute royalty or a sworn blood brother. Saran didn't even flinch. He just held out his arm, totally cool with letting her confirm whatever she needed to know. Locking eyes with him, Hwan grabbed his wrist and pressed her fingertips right against his pulse. Suddenly, this intense blue aura flared up around her as she started dropping some heavy lore. She explained that the martial arts of the Tang clan aren't just something any random guy can pick up. You literally have to turn your body into a living sponge for deadly toxins. And while some warriors are built for it, others just crash and burn. That's exactly why these toxic arts demanded an insane, gradual adaptation process to the poison. As your internal energy leveled up, only the absolute freaks who could handle the whole package would actually hit peak mastery. It's a whole leveling system. You start at 5 poisons, then grind your way up to 10, 100, 1,000, and finally cap out at an insane 10,000. The good news? Soran's physical vessel was actually wired to learn these deadly arts. The catch? He was currently hard stuck at the 10 poison tier. Basically, his system would completely shut down if he absorbed more than 10 different toxins. But honestly, rocking a 10 poison body as an outsider with 0 Tang clan blood was still an absolute flex. Hearing this, Soran's jaw practically hit the floor. Hwan kept breaking it down, hyping him up by saying this tier automatically made him a top-class martial artist, which was literally the absolute ceiling for anyone without god-tier genetics. Having said her piece, she stood up, dropped a goodbye, and bounced, leaving Soran completely lost in his own head. This whole 10 poison limit thing was heavily messing with his vibe. All the color drained from his face when it hit him. This soft cap might permanently lock him out of reaching the ultimate poison genesis. Yeah, this was a massive red flag for his future. Fast forward a few hours, and someone stepped out of a steamy bath. It was Hwan, looking absolutely breathtaking. But she couldn't shake this one weird detail. Ever since she absorbed the inner core of that blue-spotted centipede, her skin kept giving off this seriously bizarre scent. Even after scrubbing herself down multiple times a day, as she slipped into her clothes, she seriously started questioning if this lingering smell was straight-up karma for acting shady toward the guy who literally saved her life. Cut back to Soran, who was completely knocked out. Deep in his sleep, a mysterious voice echoed in his dreams, dropping a massive thank you for his pure kindness. Boom, it was Hwan. Staring in absolute disbelief, he asked if he was trapped in some crazy fever dream. Hwan just smirked, admitting it totally felt like a hallucination, but this was dead serious reality. She quickly dropped the lore behind her familiar face. She had actually hijacked the physical form of the girl who swallowed her inner core, a clever little trick to keep him from completely freaking out. Then she dropped the ultimate bombshell. Stepping into the light, she proudly announced herself as the literal mother of every single monster creeping around them. The blue-spotted centipede, Soren's brain just could not process it. Out of nowhere, 3 tiny girls walked right up to him. He figured they had to be her kids. He demanded to know how she was hijacking his dream space. She dropped a heavy truth bomb. She got brutally slaughtered, with zero mercy, leaving her helpless babies behind. Her pure, unfiltered rage literally pierced the heavens, anchoring her soul right inside her inner core. She confessed that while she was busy cursing the living daylights out of the girl who swallowed her core, a wild loophole popped up, a chance to finally settle the score, which dragged her straight into his subconscious. The only reason this crazy mind link even worked, he had been carrying her entire brood around this whole time. The realization hit Soren like a freight train. He was totally tangled up in this monster's tragic death without even realizing it. Zero planning on his part, but fate had basically tied them together. He locked eyes with the giant mother, and she hit him with one final, desperate request. Soren did not even blink. He gave his absolute word, whatever she needed. Consider it done. The mission? Babysit her little creepers until they reached full adulthood. Soren's jaw dropped. Wait a second. Did not these bugs basically go solo after shedding their skin twice once they left the nest? The monster mom broke it down for him. Her babies absolutely needed the key, radiating from her core until that second molt. Only then could they start hunting for raw, living key from other creatures to actually level up. Soren raised an eyebrow. Wait, did that mean these little guys had to stick to Juan like glue, since she literally ate the core? The phantom beast laid out the cold, hard facts. She had slapped a nasty hex right onto Juan. It made her body reek of this toxic stench, basically acting as the ultimate guy repellent and completely ruining any chance of her starting a family. But there was a catch. She would break the curse instantly, provided Juan let the babies drain the key from that trapped core. Plus, she dropped a massive hint. This was a total win for Soren. Sticking close to the toxic beauty was the ultimate cheat code to snatching her heart. Soren chewed on that for a second, then just cracked a smile. Nah, that was not his style. Manipulating a girl while she was down in the dumps? Hard pass. The monster mom was genuinely stunned by his absolute Chad energy. So, what exactly was his grand master plan to fix this entire mess? She hit him with a harsh reality check. Juan only chased top-tier fighters, and a regular spirit could not exactly hand over a supreme toxic beast core. Ding! A light bulb went off in Soren's head. He looked straight at the beast and told her to just trust the process, swearing up and down he would handle business. Cut to the very next morning. Soren and Juan were chilling side by side. Juan had already pieced the puzzle together. Her awful body scent was completely linked to that cursed blue core. Soren backed up her theory, dropping the ultimate solution. If she just let his tiny bugs latch onto her skin every couple of days to suck up that excess key, the nasty aura would literally fade out on its own. Juan hesitated, visibly conflicted, before asking the real question. Was he seriously carrying her through this for free? She knew he held all the cards and could have squeezed a massive payout out of her. Soren just gave a cool smirk. Kicking a girl when she was down? Yeah, no. He absolutely refused to be that kind of trashy guy. Juan was totally caught off guard. A wave of guilt washed over her, and she firmly stated she could not just keep freeloading off his kindness, without giving anything back. Right then, her dad's old advice echoed in her head, and for the very first time, it actually clicked. Staring at Soren, it finally hit her. There was way more to a guy than just raw talent or flashy martial arts combos. Meanwhile, Soren's brain was working in overdrive. He flashed back to Juan, bragging about her super rare 10 poisons physique, meaning she was hard-capped at absorbing exactly 10 unique toxins. And then, it clicked. A crazy, genius plan. If she only had 10 slots in her inventory, they needed to be filled with the absolute rarest drops from the top 10, deadliest beasts in the Central Plains. Juan's eyes went wide at the sheer audacity. She totally misunderstood, thinking Soren's insane drive to level up was all for her sake. Her face instantly turned beet red. For Tong Juan, literally one of Murim's top 3 beauties and the iconic poison flower, nobody had ever flexed this hard just to impress her. Super flustered, she stuttered, asking if he even grasped the massive weight of what he was actually implying. Soren, looking completely clueless, just casually shook his head. Nope, Juan broke it down for him. This questline he just picked was absolute hell mode. We were talking a 10, 20-year grind, maybe even a whole lifetime. Soren's expression instantly dropped, the dread setting in as he started questioning if it was seriously going to take that insanely long. Juan, her cheeks still burning red, pointed out he was only 15. Fast forward 3 years, when he officially became an adult and hit the marriage market. If he somehow managed to solo even one of those legendary toxic bosses, she would be genuinely floored by his skills. She shyly dropped the ultimate hint. If he actually pulled it off, there might just be wedding bells in their future. After dropping that massive nuke, the panic set in, and she literally sprinted away. Soren, completely baffled, shouted her name. She hit the brakes, glancing back to see if he had some romantic comeback. Nah, Soran just casually suggested she stick around for a few more hours to finish her poison treatment. Mortified, Juan slowly dragged her feet back. He told her to just chill out, promising the tiny bugs were not going to take a chunk out of her. Then, he gathered his creepy little squad and gave the ultimate command, go hang out with their new host mom. Hearing her dad use those kinds of words, Juan's face basically turns into a tomato, and she instantly calls him out for it. Soran immediately waves his hands, scrambling to explain that the situation is definitely not what it looks like. Cut to the dining room. Chiol-sang, his wife, and Muang are having a serious sit-down. They are trying to figure out how this ridiculously overpowered young warrior still hasn't managed to win Juan over. Muang spills the tea, mentioning he caught them together that morning and totally sensed a spark between them. But Juan's mom shuts that theory down, guessing her daughter actually gave Soran the cold shoulder. The guys chew on this for a second. Muang drops some wisdom, saying forced marriages always crash and burn. He insists they need to let the romance slow burn naturally. Taking the cue, Juan's mom pitches a genius idea. Why not make Juan his personal martial arts master? Forced proximity means they'd spend way more time together and build an unbreakable bond. Chiol-sang is completely on board. Then Muang takes it a step further, plotting to hit up the elder healer. He wants to score the legendary marrow and essence purifying elixir. If the kid's base stats are trash, this potion could totally carry his build. Chiol-sang's jaw drops. He hits the brakes hard, reminding them that not even Juan got her hands on that top-tier loot. They definitely shouldn't be inhaling that much copium. Muang nods, realizing he got a bit carried away. Speak of the devil, Juan suddenly announces herself at the door. Chiol-sang asks his daughter what brings her around at this hour, waving her inside. Juan freezes, her cheeks instantly flaring red when she realizes she just walked into a full family summit. She nervously clears her throat. Still blushing hard, she blurts out that she's down to do exactly what her dad suggested. Chiol-sang just blinks, completely, utterly lost. Her mom pats the seat next to her, hitting her with that gentle, knowing smile. She softly asks if the young warrior finally caught her eye. Juan turns into a stuttering mess, struggling to form a coherent sentence. Chiol-sang is leaning in now, dying to know what triggered this absolute 180-degree personality flip. Taking a deep breath, Juan finally spills. She reveals Soran literally swore to become the absolute strongest in the world, just for her. Now her dad is super invested, practically begging for the lore drop. Juan breaks down Soran's crazy situation. Despite having absolute garbage, innate talent, basically capped at the 10 poisons tier, the kid vowed to shatter his limits. He swore to hunt down and completely obliterate the 10 great venomous beasts in her name. Muang chuckles at the sheer audacity. Chiol-sang is totally blown away. Muang starts laughing out loud, fully respecting the young guy's massive main character energy. Juan's mom is basically swooning. Finding a guy with that kind of insane dedication is crazy rare. Juan admits she's totally into it, but she set a hardcore challenge. She told Soran she'd only put a ring on it if he bags one of those legendary venomous beasts before he becomes an adult. Now she's overthinking, wondering if her tsundere act was too vague. Her dad cracks a joke, saying she went way too easy on him. He claims she should have demanded at least 3 beast heads. Mom rolls her eyes, reminding them that teenage boys are practically blind to subtle hints. Juan panics a bit, asking if she needs to go spell it out for him. Her mom immediately shoots that idea down. She explains the master plan. If Soran stays clueless about them already approving him, he'll just keep grinding like a madman. Muang smirks, agreeing they should totally treat him like a future son-in-law behind the scenes, while keeping up a strict boss-level front. All that blood, sweat, and tears would officially lock him in as family soon enough. Meanwhile, cut back to the centipede mother. She's hyping Soran up for successfully rizzing Juan. Soran plays it cool, claiming it's all just pure grind and willpower. She flashes him a warm, grateful smile. Calling him her savior, she drops the heavy news that this is her final goodbye. Her dark karma is completely cleansed, and her soul is ready to log out of this world. But before she ascends, she offers to grant him one ultimate wish. Soran rubs his chin, thinking hard. Suddenly, he asks to see her true form. The centipede mother instantly gets flustered. She totally misreads the vibe, figuring it's a fair request. Assuming this teenage boy is just down bad, she nervously bares her shoulder and actually starts undressing. Soran goes wide-eyed, screaming inside as he asks if she seriously needs to strip. Now she's glowing bright red. Mortified, she stammers, asking if he wants her to stop. Soran is waving his hands. He frantically waved his hands, clarifying that was totally not what he meant. Off to the side, her adorable little babies literally face-palmed, covering their tiny eyes in pure second-hand embarrassment. He finally spelled it out. All he actually wanted was to witness the legendary true form of a blue-spotted centipede in the flesh. Realizing her massive mix-up, the mama centipede absolutely died inside from the cringe. Suddenly, a thick cloud of mystical smoke swallowed the entire clearing, and as the mist faded, her jaw-dropping monster form was finally unleashed. Soran literally stopped breathing, totally mesmerized by the epic reveal. Seeing her raw, untamed state had him completely hyped, and her colossal size was just mind-blowing. Bursting with total fanboy energy, he desperately asked if he could touch her armor, but he did not even wait for a yes before diving right in. He obsessively inspected her insane, waterproof exoskeleton, immediately spamming her with questions about her toxic venom stats, her razor-sharp legs, her antennas, and those terrifying fangs. She straight up warned him those things were lethal, but he just had to pet them anyway. The centipede mom was low-key stressing, wondering if her babies were actually safe around this guy. The way he handled them? Total menace energy. Not normal at all. It was wild and kinda hilarious seeing Soran literally drooling over these creepy crawlies like they were cute puppies. Cut to later, Chelson pulls Soran aside for a chill tea session. He drops a bomb. He already got the full rundown from Juan, and from this exact second, they were locking him in as their official son-in-law. Soran blinked, totally lost, mentioning something about a 3-year waiting period, but Chelson shut that down real quick. He basically told him the wedding was a done deal the second he hit adulthood. Soran tried to pump the brakes, but Juan's mom was already hype, treating him like blood, and happily flexing her new title as his mother-in-law. Even Muang, the big boss, was grinning from ear to ear. He bragged that Juan bagged a top-tier husband, and that their clan was about to level up big time. Soran just stared at Muang, mind completely blown by how fast they accepted him. Weren't there supposed to be, like, strict trials for this? He wondered if this family just skipped the whole screening process. Rolling with it instead of fighting back, he bowed his head and said he was ready to learn from them. That's when Muang sparked up, declaring they needed to start grinding immediately. Chelson gave Soran a heads up. Before he could master the legendary Tang clan poison arts, there was a VIP spot he needed to see first. Soran tilted his head, asking what it was. The elders just flashed these knowing, hyped-up smirks. Chelson revealed it was the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, basically Soran's ultimate playground. He explained they had been waiting for this exact moment, so he could finally step into their most sacred vault as an official family member. Calling Muang Grandpa, Soran couldn't hide his massive grin. He was already daydreaming about an insane armory packed with 10,000 toxic concoctions. But then he caught a glimpse of Juan's side profile, and his brain just completely short-circuited. She looked drop-dead gorgeous. It brought up that old saying about true beauty shining from an angle, and right there, he felt like he was staring straight at a masterpiece, ripped right out of a high-end museum. His face turned deep red, totally busting himself in front of his amused in-laws. Chelson teased him, joking that Soran was going to burn a hole through her face if he kept staring like that, reminding him that she was already his girl, yet he was still simping hard. His mother-in-law chimed in, saying he looked totally spellbound. Both kids instantly turned into blushing messes. Trying to dodge the embarrassing spotlight, Juan quickly told him to watch his step. Still completely flustered, Soran stumbled over his words, just stuttering out an awkward yes. Moments later, they pulled up to this massive, intimidating vault door. 2 absolute tanks, with insane builds, were standing guard, locked into position. A dude rocking the official clan robes stepped up, bowing deep to Patriarch Muang. Muang barked out the order, crack the vault open and show his new grandson-in-law the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. The guards instantly moved. Soran was taking mental notes. The security here was mad heavy, giving off straight-up medieval fortress vibes. The guy in the black robes shouted that the gates were opening. The 2 muscle-bound giants flexed every vein they had, pushing against the crazy heavy metal. The robed guy actually gasped, muttering that the doors swung wide way faster than usual today. Soran raised an eyebrow at that weird little detail. Once the vault fully opened, the 2 guards were completely winded, panting hard. The robed guide waved them inside. As they stepped through, Chelson dropped some lore. He explained that this insane iron door was forged entirely from Kunlun steel, an ultra-rare metal dragged all the way from the deep south. Forcing it open wasn't just a workout, it was a massive flex of honor. And inside, absolute paradise. The vault holding the entire Tang clan's legacy was packed to the brim with exactly 10,000 unique, deadly toxins. Muang hit Soran with a serious warning. Watch your hands, and don't touch anything stupidly. Soran nodded, saying he got the memo. Then, he had to ask, was there actually 10,000 of them in here? Chelson smirked and confirmed it, pointing out how insanely organized it was. Everything was sorted into tiers, paralyzing agents, sleeping drafts, and way crazier stuff. Of course, the older guys couldn't resist trolling the young couple one more time. Chelson told Juan to be Soran's personal tour guide, knowing damn well he'd pay way more attention if it came from her. Both of them turned red again, but she stepped up. Grabbing his hand, Juan dragged Soran straight toward the absolute deadliest stuff the Tang clan had. The elders watched them, like proud parents. She started by pointing out the key dissipating poison, a total nightmare for martial artists, because one whiff of that stuff just straight up deletes your energy. She warned Soran not to even breathe near it. Then she showed off the real nightmare fuel: the digestive tract, necrosis toxin, the spirit destroyer, the bloody pulp brew, and the iconic 7-step soul stealer. But the crazy part? She casually mentioned that none of these. They called it the absolute strongest toxin in their arsenal. So when the guy literally just handed Soran a tiny seed, our boy was totally baffled. Honestly, it looked like an ordinary tiger bean, but Juan shut that down real quick, hyping it up as the deadliest poison on Earth, second only to the legendary toxins of the 10 great venomous beasts. He dropped the lore, revealing this specific seed came from a plant that practically defined the entire Tang clan, the castor bean. Okay, now Soran was actually hooked. His modern knowledge kicked in. Castor meant ricin, a totally unhinged biotoxin where just 2 measly milligrams could easily flatline a grown adult. His mind instantly flashed back to that crazy Cold War assassination where some dude took out a Bulgarian dissident using a rigged, ricin-tipped umbrella. We are talking 100,000 times deadlier than cyanide. It was the ultimate endgame weapon for the Tang clan because it ticked all the boxes: completely invisible, totally odorless, tasteless, and impossible to detect. That epic combo earned it the title of the rarest, most god-tier poison ever crafted, dubbed the Golden Poison. And when they weaponized it, people just called it the Golden Death. Juan then dropped some serious wisdom. He told Soren that true ultimate poison wasn't about triggering maximum pain or giving someone a flashy, gruesome end. Nah, the actual terrifying stuff was the kind that snuffed you out in absolute silence, striking lightning fast without leaving a single trace behind. He laid out the entire philosophy of the Tang clan's poison arts, aiming for 0 detection and a 100% fatality rate. Hearing all this dark stuff, Soran couldn't help but think they sounded way more like a hardcore assassin syndicate than a bunch of plant-loving herbalists. But Muan finally cut in, deciding they had nerded out enough about deadly toxins for one day. She smoothly pivoted, asking if Soran wanted to go check out those venomous beasts he had been dying to see. She even threw out the ultimate offer, letting him personally manage their care with the clan's absolute financial backing. Translation? They were literally going to sponsor his crazy pet obsession. Soran was practically buzzing with hype, but right as they headed for the exit, a frantic messenger crashed the party. "Patriarch!" Gupai screamed out, totally out of breath from sprinting. The mood instantly shifted. Muan and the crew locked in. "Talk. What went wrong?" Juan demanded. Gupai was fighting for air, gasping out that the Patriarch needed to haul it over to the Black Turtle Pavilion right this second, he said in a full panic. Juan's brow twitched. "Give me a reason," the messenger stammered, trying to explain some messy drama involving a clan elder, but Juan just snapped, his temper flaring. What kind of garbage are those backstabbers plotting now? Soran just stood there, guessing they were probably talking about the annoying branch family members. Juan threw a dark look at Gupai, who finally managed to spit out the rest of the intel. Apparently, they were dealing with a massive double-header crisis. Problem 1. That premium medicine they shipped off to the Sichuan city lord totally flopped, and the guy fired back an angry letter roasting them. Before Gupai could even drop the second bomb, his eyes darted over to Soran, who just let out a heavy sigh. The messenger then spilled that the next issue was all about the Hall of 10,000 Poisons, and Muan instantly knew the rumor mill was already spinning out of control. They had to move immediately, but Muan absolutely refused to leave, without dragging Soran along for the ride. Cut to the Black Turtle Pavilion, where the Boomer elders immediately spotted the Patriarch walking in, and instantly started throwing a massive tantrum over him, calling the shots without their permission. They were completely triggered that he dared to match Muan up with some random orphan who literally came from nowhere. Big mistake. That completely set off Chaelsun, who was absolutely not going to let them trash-talk Soren like that. Bro literally started glowing with this massive, menacing green aura, demanding to know if they were openly disrespecting his son-in-law. But the elders doubled down, whining that their complaints were totally justified. Juan, looking like he was 1 second away from snapping, flexed his authority, stating he made the call and practically daring them to step up if they had beef. The old guys panicked and desperately looked over at the Grand Patriarch, praying he would talk some sense into the current leader. They argued it was straight up reckless to hand over the keys to the 10,000 poisons to an absolute nobody with 0 track record. Juan wasn't having it, doubling down that his word was final. While the room was practically tearing itself apart, Muan noticed Soran standing there and quietly whispered an apology for the mess. Soren just rolled his eyes internally, thinking, "Bro, seriously?" But then he sighed, catching on that she was actually stressing over him, when honestly, he should be the one sweating right now. Then, plot twist, Soren actually stepped up to the plate. "Hey, my bad for crashing the party, but hear me out. He hit them with a brutal logic check. If everyone was throwing a fit because they thought he was a scrub, he just needed to flex his skills and prove them wrong in front of the whole council. The elders were practically glitching out in confusion. Soren calmly suggested that he should personally handle the beef with the Sichuan city lord to show them what he was made of. Huan leaned in, whispering, asking him what on earth he was plotting. Now, Soren usually hated the spotlight and actively avoided drama, but there was no way he would let these boomers ruin his chill pet breeding lifestyle. The elders, though, they were incredibly salty. They started ripping into him for cutting them off, straight up challenging him and asking if he even had a clue what the city lord's letter said before running his mouth. They immediately labeled him an arrogant nobody, running straight to the clan boss to complain about his bold interruption. These elders seized the moment to push their own agenda, claiming the family needed a son-in-law with a top-tier martial arts pedigree. Cheol-sun's wife was quietly seething in the background. Sorang just found these geezers absolutely delusional. Back in his past life as Spicy Fabra, he was flexing over 1 million subscribers, pulling 3,000 concurrent viewers every single stream. It clicked in his head. These guys still refused to accept his status as the Sichuan Tang clan's son-in-law. Basically, they were still treating him like a random houseguest. But coming from a massive internet fanbase, he was completely immune to brainless trolls trying to stir up drama for zero reason. Sorang laid down the facts, reminding everyone that he literally rescued the clan's precious jewel, Lady Hua In. Oh, and let us not forget he also wiped the floor with Ta Kun Yong, the Crimson Hand Demon, and personally saved the Patriarch's life. He then hit the elders with a brutal question. Is trashing a literal lifesaver standard Tang clan hospitality? Honestly, Sorang knew their petty boomer rage was nothing compared to the toxic chat rooms he used to moderate daily. To him, this whole council meeting was just a cheap comedy sketch. Caught completely off guard, the flustered elders stuttered out pathetic excuses, claiming they only spoke out of sheer panic. Sorang inwardly cringed at their absolute lack of spine. Meanwhile, the Grand Patriarch was watching the kid, completely impressed by his swagger. One stubborn elder refused to quit, trying to argue that taking down Ta Kun Yong was pure exaggeration. But the Patriarch shut that down instantly, slamming a physical document onto the table as hard proof. The critic gasped for air. Every single jaw in the room dropped when they realized they were staring at the legendary Crimson Hand Toxic Arts Manual. Inked completely in actual life fluid, it was a 100% authentic relic, straight from the Crimson Cult. The Patriarch then hyped Sorang up, telling him to reveal the speckled centipedes. Sorang casually tapped his chest, gesturing for the haters to watch closely. 3 tiny, speckled crawlers happily wiggled out into the open. The elders immediately squirmed in their seats, looking visibly sick to their stomachs. The big boss clarified that these were actually azure speckled centipede hatchlings, being personally raised by his new son-in-law. He then dropped the bomb. These exact tiny bugs had literally chewed Ta Kun Yong right into the afterlife. The council was absolutely shook. They demanded to know if this rookie fighter actually managed to tame such lethal, high-tier creatures. The Patriarch, Sorang, and Gupa all shared evil little smirks, silently roasting the boomers' panic. Cheol-sun chimed in, pointing out that still calling him a rookie fighter proved they were in pure denial about him being family. Sorang even tossed out a playful threat. 1 bite, and you guys will end up just as scorched and lifeless as Ta Kun Yong. Terrified out of their minds, the elders frantically backpedaled, sweating as they swore they fully accepted Sorang. They scrambled for the most pathetic excuses, whining about official protocols, and claiming their skepticism was just standard procedure. The Grand Patriarch just let out a heavy, tired sigh, choosing to drop the whole family title drama for now. He quickly pivoted, demanding to know why his guy was being blocked from entering the Hall of 10,000 Toxins. The elders immediately threw up a defense, arguing that Sorang wasn't officially locked in as a blood relative yet. Plus, they were absolutely paranoid about handing over their ultimate toxic armory to a kid who had not even hit full adulthood. The big boss offered a dead simple fix. He told Sorang to just step up and flex his skills right then and there. Flashing a cocky grin, Sorang announced he would prove his worth the only way that mattered, by breaking out the heavy toxins. The council boomers completely lost it, blindly assuming this absolute madman was planning to assassinate the Lord of Sichuan Province. They called him a total maniac for even thinking about dealing out damage instead of sending actual healing medicine. Sorang just scratched his head, genuinely confused since the Tang clan's entire brand was built on lethal arts. Fast forward to the next morning, the Grand Patriarch gave Sorang the ultimate rundown. It was officially time to unlock the clan's signature combat style, the legendary 5 toxins reversal technique. When Sorang asked if he had to hit the training yard for a physical grind, the boss explained that channeling this martial energy would automatically reconstruct his body to handle the high-tier moves. Muang jumped in, stressing that the Tang clan was all about pure street survival. meaning Sorang was getting a massive crash course in skills he could spam in actual life or death fights immediately. Muang then unloaded a heavy stash of weapons, dropping arrows, daggers, and ninja stars onto the table. They kicked things off with the concealed projectile class, think needles, sharp coins, darts, blinding dust, and throwing knives. Even with all the crazy unconventional gear out there, everything basically fell into 5 main categories. Muang quizzed the kid, asking which one looked like the ultimate beginner weapon. Sorang instantly pointed at the dagger or throwing knife, nailing the answer on his first try. Then came the real trick question, which one was the absolute nightmare to master? Sorang placed his bet on the powder, figuring area of effect crowd control was way too tough to spread perfectly. But Muang hit him with a heavy reality check, revealing that the tiny needle was actually the final boss of weapons. Sorang figured it was just because aiming a microscopic piece of metal was nearly impossible, making precision a total joke. But Muang dropped the real secret. The true insanity was not throwing them. It was perfectly memorizing the exact coordinates of every single needle you scattered across the battlefield. To prove his point, Muang didn't just talk, he showed off. He snapped the tip right off a calligraphy brush and whipped his arm in a blur. The bristles scattered into the air, morphing into literal steel needles that carpet-bombed the dirt. Sorang's jaw practically hit the floor, watching those tiny hairs pierce the solid ground like armor-piercing rounds. Stepping in, Huan dropped some heavy lore, revealing that the Tang family guarded a legendary stealth technique dubbed the Sky-Concealing Flower Rain. This ultimate move wasn't a joke, it involved blasting hundreds, maybe thousands of spikes into the sky, dropping them down like a deadly floral storm that blanketed the entire battlefield. Taking that in, our boy Sorang realized one wrong step in that kill zone meant instant death. He nervously pointed out the obvious flaw: if the whole ground is spiked up, dodging would be physically impossible. Muan just chuckled darkly, hitting him with the harsh reality. That was exactly the master plan. Sorang had to hardwire the exact landing spot of every single needle, or he'd end up skewering himself. Sorang looked at him like he had 2 heads, sweating bullets. He double-checked if he seriously needed to track every stray needle that bounced off an enemy, or completely missed the target. Muan gave him a deadpan nod. He then casually dropped the bomb that, thanks to his 5 poisons physique, Sorang needed to memorize a bare minimum of 100 impact points just for the tutorial phase. The color totally drained from Sorang's face. After that hardcore flex, he literally face-planted into the dirt, totally drained. Cue Lady Huan rolling up to the scene. He glanced over and asked if she was good to go, considering she was decked out in a full-blown hazmat-style beekeeper suit to hunt down a hornet. She honestly looked like she wanted to bail, asking if this was strictly required. Sorang didn't sugarcoat it, they absolutely needed the gear. Originally, his lazy strat was just chilling until the swarm came to them, but with the armor on, they could take the fight to the hive. Huan gave him a side-eye, asking if his grand master plan was seriously just waiting around for a bug to spawn. Playing it cool, Sorang told her the puzzle pieces would connect once they arrived. Shifting gears, he asked if she actually had the coordinates for a nest. Huan gave him the green light, saying she had scoped one out nearby, meaning they could roll out instantly. Tossing his own protective suit on, Sorang strapped in. But right as they were getting locked and loaded, Huan awkwardly brought up that top-secret letter. They mailed to the Sichuan city lord, probing to see if he actually read the fine print. Sorang casually confirmed he did. Looking super uncomfortable, Huan worried that since Sorang was basically still a kid, the mature details of that message might have totally flown over his head. Smirking, Sorang dropped a heavy hint that John Key was a guy packing some serious status. Catching his drift, Huan's face turned tomato red, and she aggressively hushed him, finally realizing the dude was completely caught up on the spicy gossip. The massive issue, keeping the powerful Sichuan city lord awake at night, his little soldier wasn't standing at attention anymore. Bro had severe performance issues. Huan instantly got suspicious. How did a guy his age know about the birds and the bees? Sweating a bit, Sorang played the defense card, claiming he'd been living solo and picked up a few things. Dying of cringe, Huan speed-walked ahead to escape the chat. Fast forward a few hours, they finally hit the dense woods. Sorang kept getting sidetracked by random creepy crawlies, forcing Huan to literally herd him like a toddler until they reached the drop zone. They pulled up to a tiny, shadowy cave, absolute prime real estate for a swarm. Sliding her helmet on, Huan questioned why they needed a lone wolf bee without a squad, making sure her gear was totally sealed. That's when Sorang dropped the ultimate plot twist. Despite all this hype about tracking hornets, they weren't actually going to catch a single one. Huan's brain practically short-circuited. Creeping closer to the ominous dark hole, Sorang broke it down: the specific toxic critter they actually needed only crashed in the sketchiest, weakest hives on the block. This was totally new intel for Huan, but luck was on their side. This exact nest was holding the VIP target. A weird bug crawled out, and Sorang hit it with the ninja speed chopstick grab. Forget the hornets, this squirmy little guy was the true final boss. This exact pest was the magic pill for the city lord's bedroom crisis. Peering closely, Juan asked what kind of freakish species they just bagged, taking a wild guess that it was a ground beetle. She nailed it on the first try, which gave Sorang a reality check about local biology. In this timeline, the parasite chilling in the Bont 5, hornet turf was branded a ground beetle. While the Central Plains folks ran with that exact naming convention, Sorang's modern-day brain recognized it as the notorious blister beetle. Juan raised an eyebrow, asking if it was standard protocol for these beetles to just roommate with deadly hornets. Going full nature documentary, Sorang explained their ridiculously weird life cycle. See, blister beetles have zero chill when it comes to breeding. While most normal bugs go out of their way to build secure nurseries or violently defend their eggs from predators, this absolute menace just airdrops its babies wherever it feels like it. Sorang pictured this hilarious, cartoonish scenario where a beetle literally tells its boss to pause the meeting just so it can lay some eggs mid-commute. Zero maternal instinct, zero planning, just dumping a payload of eggs in one random spot and dipping out. But when the hatching miracle finally hits, these chaotic little larvae immediately start speed crawling toward the highest elevation they can find. Once they summit that peak, they execute a ridiculously wild strat. They literally link up like a transformer to mimic the shape of a flower, completely scamming unsuspecting bees into flying right into their trap. The absolute second a carpenter bee drifts too close, the entire larva swarm ambushes its body. Just like that, the bee's crib is completely hijacked. Soran could not quite wrap his head around why these freaks obsessed over giant murder hornet hives, but apparently, it was the ultimate incubator for raising these brutal ground beetle spawn. Juan actually felt a twinge of pity for the killer wasp, but Soran just shrugged it off, basically saying, nature is ruthless. Juan already knew these vile bugs literally melted skin on contact, and rumors claimed swallowing a heavy dose meant a guaranteed game over. Soran backed that up immediately. He broke down how the neon orange ooze dripping off the blister beetle packed a lethal punch of a hardcore toxin called cantharidin. One drop on bare skin spawned agonizing burn blisters. Juan flushed bright red, awkwardly asking if the crazy rumors were totally true. Soran smirked and confirmed the venom could instantly make a guy's sword stand at full attention. Absolutely mortified, Juan frantically begged him to zip it, practically dragging him all the way back to the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. Soran was itching to bag a few more bugs, but they already locked down the prime blister beetle, otherwise known as the ground beast. Once safely back at base camp, they started coaching the muscle on brewing this insane elixir. Soran demanded absolute laser focus. Step 1 was strictly dehydrating the living daylights out of the insect and pulverizing it into microdust. He then dropped a massive warning, explaining that just 1/10 of a mo was insanely toxic, and swallowing 3 mo of this stuff would literally flatline someone. He broke down the terrifying math, showing that 3/10 of a mo per guan of body weight packed a straight-up 50% fatality rate. Because it was that wildly lethal, he commanded the dosage to be capped at exactly 1/10 of a mo, which meant precisely 10 tiny droplets. For context, 1 mo weighed barely 3.75 milligrams, while a guan tipped the scales at 3.75 kilos. Flexing his brain that hard nearly short-circuited Soran completely. One of the heavy hitters peeled off his mask, totally shook. Admitting no one expected Soran to be an absolute math god, he promised the crew would follow the recipe, like it was pure gospel. Later that night under the moonlight, Juan and Wang were totally geeking out over how wildly insane it was that dirty ground bugs held that kind of raw power. Juan confessed, it made her completely rethink, utilizing raw toxins for the Tang family deadly toolkit. Wang nodded in total agreement. Then, Juan brought up Soran's insanely massive big brain energy. She replayed how he flawlessly calculated the exact chemical ratios, down to the micro weight of 10 measly droplets. Wang had to hand it to him, admitting that even though he considered himself a hardcore poison master, Soran was playing chess in a whole different league entirely. The more he observed the kid, the more obvious it became that this guy was an absolute cheat code. He nudged Juan, teasingly, asking if she was catching major feelings now. Juan lit up like a total tomato, quietly admitting she felt super guilty for judging him so harshly on day one. Wang patted her shoulder, telling her a solid comeback arc is what really matters. Juan then pivoted, wondering how on earth they were going to beta test this sketchy potion. Blushing fiercely, practically dying inside, she brought up how the side branch boomers kept running their mouths, calling Soran a completely reckless loose cannon. Cut to Soran, playfully tossing out the ultimate savage idea, suggesting the absolute best crash test dummies would be forcing those grumpy old clan elders to pop a tent. The sheer disrespect caught Juan totally off guard, but she absolutely lost it, cracking up. Fast forward to morning, intense tension choked the Grand Hall. The Boomer Council was radiating pure doubt. One of the enforcers slid Saran a slick wooden case, flexing how he completely leveled up the raw formula by blending the bitter lotus dust with premium honey to make it go down smooth. Soran was genuinely hyped by the 5-star service. He locked eyes with the guy, verifying if the lethal specs were followed flawlessly. The warrior gave a rock-solid nod. Still, the haters in the room kept whispering, highly suspicious of this so-called miracle cure. The head honcho slammed the brakes on the chatter, demanding, Soran dropped the ultimate proof that this stuff actually worked. Soran slapped on a beautifully fake gasp, acting totally stunned. The crusty elders doubled down hard, yelling that quality testing was strictly non-negotiable. One dude literally barked that they refused to ship unverified juice straight to the big boss of Sichuan City. Another boomer chimed in, terrified that a botched delivery would spark an absolute bloodbath. Soran threw his hands up, pretending he had absolutely zero choice. The enforcer caught his savage drift instantly. The elders suddenly looked absolutely mind-blown as the muscle marched right up and offered them the premium dose, realizing Soran was making them the ultimate guinea pigs. One furious grandpa lost his absolute mind, screaming if this cocky kid had any clue who he was messing with. Another snapped that Soran had been running the wild streets for so long, his entire moral compass was totally corrupted. Soran flashed a sly grin, turning to his grandfather, Muan, casually asking what the old man needed. Then, Soran dropped the ultimate bait, reminding Muan about the Tang clan's golden rule: true martial arts masters never sweat a little poison. Catching the drift, Muan played right along, backing up the flex. Soran then side-eyed the elders, pointing out that their hesitation totally screamed pure panic. Muan nodded, backing his play completely. Smelling blood in the water, Soran weaponized reverse psychology, brutally roasting the clan's top brass. He hyped them up, claiming these legends who had conquered 100 toxins wouldn't dare flinch at something as basic as a ground beetle's venom. The taunt hit a massive nerve. Boiling with absolute rage, one elder snapped the medicine right in half. They barked that low-tier poison was a total joke to them, swallowing the pill whole while cursing Soran for disrespecting their power levels. But they dropped a heavy threat: if this sketchy med turned out to be a dud, Soran was going to pay the ultimate price. One elder puffed out his chest, vowing to drop the hammer of clan justice on the kid. They chewed the pill, and a dead silence suffocated the room. A beat passed, and they laughed it off, flexing that they felt absolutely nothing. But suddenly, one of the elders felt an ancient, long-dead spark reignite downstairs. The sleeping dragon had officially woken up. Completely humiliated, the clan's strict rules and principles got violently realigned that day. The controversial pill was immediately shipped off to the Lord of Sichuan City, and spoiler alert, the results were absolutely legendary. Fast forward a bit, and those same elders were waddling down the hallway, desperately pitching their pants outward to hide their newly resurrected situations. Man, I remember doing the exact same walk back in my prime, someone joked nearby. Meanwhile, Soren nudged Muan, pointing out that his master plan worked flawlessly. Baiting the elders' egos with poison talk was a guaranteed critical hit. They walked face first into the trap. Muan totally got it. For old dudes clinging to nothing but their massive pride, falling for that setup was purely inevitable. Still, the grandpa admitted their toxic ego came from genuinely caring about the clan's future, warning Soren to let go of any bad blood. At the end of the day, we are blood, Muan reminded him. Soran gave a slow nod, fully absorbing the lesson. Suddenly, the mood shattered. Juan sprinted toward them, her face pale, screaming that an absolute disaster had just dropped. Alarm bells rang as both guys whipped around, demanding answers. Panting, Juan blurted out that their children were acting completely unhinged. Soran's face turned completely red, his brain short-circuiting, while Muan's eyes went dark as he instantly grabbed Soran by the throat. The grandpa growled, demanding to know what she meant by children and when exactly this happened. Soran started sweating bullets, crushing the back of Soran's neck. Muan went full interrogation mode, screaming about secret kids before they even had a proper wedding ceremony. Freaking out, Juan scrambled to clear the air. She wasn't talking about human babies, she meant the spotted centipedes Soran had been breeding. 0 human babies involved. The sheer whiplash left Soran completely speechless, just staring into the void. Lately, he had been grinding so hard on his physical stat building that he dumped the bug babysitting duty straight onto Juan. The guilt hit him like a truck. He had totally ghosted his pets. Panicking that they were on the brink of death, he demanded to see them immediately. He reached out, assuming she had them stashed in her pockets. Juan shrieked, refusing to carry creepy crawlies on her body, leaving Soran deadpan once again. A few tense minutes later, they tracked down the 3 blue-spotted centipedes, but the bugs looked tragic, mud-brown, and barely hanging on to life. Rocking a bright red, hilarious handprint on his cheek from the previous misunderstanding, Soran locked his eyes onto the struggling creatures. Juan hovered nervously, wondering if they had face-planted off her clothes earlier, swearing they were totally fine just a couple of hours ago. But now, her anxiety was spiking. Their shells looked terrifyingly ashy, and she was terrified some deadly sickness was wiping them out. Taking a deep breath, Soran stepped in to calm her down, dropping some nature lore. The bugs weren't dying, they were molting. He broke down the science. Hard-shelled beasts like these little guys literally have to rip out of their old armor to level up, and that was exactly what was going down. Juan leaned in, asking if the shedding phase had already kicked off. Soran shook his head, predicting the transformation was about to hit any second. Right on cue, one of the tiny terrors started twitching violently before its sleek new head burst through the old crust. The squad just stood there, completely hyped. It was an absolute cinematic masterpiece watching the other two centipedes sync up and start shredding their old exoskeletons. They peeled out of their dusty shells flawlessly, stepping into the light. Juan's jaw dropped as she realized these bugs had basically doubled in size. She turned to Soran, asking what he had named his leveled-up pets. Reality hit him. He hadn't even bothered thinking of names yet. His clueless, intensely thinking face was pure comedy gold. But the actual names he pitched, number 1, number 2, and number 3. Juan immediately vetoed the garbage names, refusing to accept such disrespect. She dropped a major lore bomb. Mythical spotted centipedes were destined to evolve into actual dragons. Once they hit the 1,000-year survival mark, they demanded names dripping with ultimate dragon energy. Soran just scoffed. He mercilessly shut down the fantasy, claiming there was zero chance a creepy ground bug was turning into a legendary dragon, even if it survived a millennium. But Muan slid into the chat with a knowing smirk, confirming the myth. A 1,000-year-old spotted centipede was, straight up, recognized as a dragon. Connecting the dots, Soren realized the old man was the one feeding Juan these epic legends. Wiping the smirk off his face, he finally locked in, brainstorming names truly worthy of future beasts. He locked in the names Nova, Mira, and Grace. Nova hit different, symbolizing a completely fresh start, while Mira gave off that sweet fragrance vibe. Grace, pure elegance and gentle energy. Juan absolutely obsessed over the names, totally cool with his choices since, traditionally, the dad holds the naming rights anyway. Just like that, our little speckled centipede squad officially got their identities. Fast forward 24 hours, and they were already clinging right back onto Soran. His skin still carried this weird, damp chill, but he could flex and move fine, even if it felt super glitchy. Plus, the centipedes had definitely packed on some serious weight. We are talking a massive glow-up, stretching from thick little sausages to the full length of his forearm. His regular hugs were getting way too cramped for them, so they just spiraled perfectly around his arms and waist, chilling hard while he laid back and snuggled up with his creepy cute crew. Suddenly, a conversation drifted over. Two random dudes were walking right by his spot. One guy, flexing a totally stuffed bag of coin, laughed about how extra the Tang clan always acted. They hyped each other up to hit the local red light district, joking about how ridiculously easy this cash grab was. Soran's ears instantly perked up, totally hooked by their shady little chat. Cut to the main pavilion. Chelson walked in, dropping massive news. That wild medicine they shipped to the Sichuan city lord? An absolute game changer. The lord practically flooded them with praise, backing it up with a ridiculously heavy reward. Soran and Juan instantly lit up, hearing the massive win. Chelson beamed, flexing pure pride over scoring such massive perks right after locking Soran in as his son-in-law. Our boy really pulled off a legendary feat. Soran just played it cool, genuinely hyped that he actually carried the team. Riding that high, Chelson suddenly offered him a straight-up magical elixir. Chelson knew framing it as a strict payout would make the humble dude decline, but he also knew his grandpa always hyped up elixirs for boosting raw internal energy. Juan immediately chimed in, demanding the specs on this potion. Chelson downplayed it hard, brushing it off as nothing too crazy, just some basic golden queen bee honey. To Soran, that sounded like off-the-shelf grocery syrup, but knowing how wildly important raw energy was, for leveling up into a true martial arts boss, he wasn't about to pass it up. He opened his mouth to drop a massive thank you to his father-in-law, but Juan instantly cut him off. She locked eyes with her dad, calling him out right there. If he was dropping loot for Soran, why was he cheaping out with just honey? Chelson physically sweat, seeing Juan snap into full savage mode. She ruthlessly argued that Soran's mega carry was no joke. Even if this golden queen bee packed mid-tier venom stats, its honey was literally bottom-barrel trash loot in the elixir world. She went hard, telling Chelson to stop acting so broke, and drop a tier 1 reward for a literal city-saving achievement, leaving her dad utterly roasted. She scolded him like a kid, demanding he hand over an ultra-rare drop that grants a full year of internal energy, not some flimsy 2-month booster shot. Chelson let out a heavy sigh, defending his loot by saying it was still officially an elixir and wildly annoying to farm. Juan's rage meter only spiked higher, clapping back that, matched against Soran's epic clutch, This supposed prize was an absolute joke. Chelson was sweating bullets, totally cornered. Breaking the tension, Soran asked for the lore on this golden queen bee. Chelson explained it was a mid-level toxic beast that occasionally spawned deep in the jungle, roughly the size of a small dog. Rumor had it, chugging its honey power-leveled your internal energy by a solid 2 months of hardcore grinding. Visualizing a literal dog-sized mutant bee, Soran felt this insane rush of pure thrill mixed with hilarious shock. Juan, however, was still fuming, completely ready to throw hands for her man. Backpedaling fast, Chelson swore he wasn't nerfing the kid's achievements. He legit thought Soran would be hyped to see the legendary golden queen bee in the flesh. That instantly flipped a switch in Soran's brain, hyping him up as he asked if his father-in-law was deadass sending him on a quest to face the beast, up close and personal. Boom. That was exactly Chelson's master plan. Deep down, Soran took that as a VIP pass to go farm the honey himself. He used to pull crazy stunts exactly like this back in his YouTuber days, so his adrenaline was absolutely peaking. As they rolled out toward the gate, Soran casually bragged that he was pretty much a certified bee whisperer. Chelson just smirked, already knowing the kid would eat this quest up. Soran pressed for the bee's visual stats. Chelson deadpanned, saying it just looks like a giant freaking bee. Juan just facepalmed with a heavy sigh. And just like that, the ultimate honey heist arc officially dropped. Chelson had hooked them up with premium, insider intel, so they figured this spawn point would be totally empty. Plot twist. The second they arrived, they walked straight into a massive turf war between two rival clans. Turns out, both factions got scammed into buying the exact same coordinates. One of the squads yelled out, asking if the rat who sold them the map had super trashy hair and a giant mole. The other gang instantly confirmed the exact same suspect, but fiercely warned they weren't backing down from the loot without a bloodbath. Catching that description, it instantly clicked for Soran, those two sketchy dudes he overheard earlier. He realized those absolute trolls had been mass selling the exclusive boss location to basically the whole server. One warrior, absolutely raging over getting played, screamed at the top of his lungs, "How dare you disrespect the legendary Tang clan?" That raw, violent tone, plus dropping the Tang name, immediately sent a wave of cold panic through everyone else. So much for their chill, cinematic honey farming vlog. He morphed into a completely different beast before even stepping foot outside for his very first expedition. Chelson had drilled it into Soryong's head. Never forget your blood. Never forget you represent the legendary Tang clan. Soryong basically hit him with a confident nod, swearing he had it totally under control. Chelson shot a side-eye, prompting Soryong to follow his gaze. Boom. An entire squad of heavily armed guys stood perfectly lined up right in front of them. Chelson dropped the bomb. Soryong was the new boss. It was finally time for him to step up and actually learn how to run a crew. Soryong instantly panicked under the crushing pressure, aggressively insisting Hwaun was the one who should be calling the shots. Chelson just cracked up, calling him absolutely clueless, and broke it down. Since Hwaun was officially his partner, her flex naturally made Soryong the top dog of the entire group by default. Just hearing the word partner made Soryong's face turn beet red. But Hwaun fully believed in him, swearing she had his back every single step of the way. Soryong had sworn he would give it his all, but fast forward to right now, trapped in absolute chaos, the dude was totally sweating bullets on his next move. He desperately turned to Wolfgang, the badass captain of the Poison Blood unit, begging for a tactical game plan to navigate this utter mess. He honestly debated if leaking their intel was actually the right play here. Wolfgang looked absolutely sick to his stomach at the mere thought of someone having the audacity to leak top-secret Tang clan info. Hwaun backed him up, coldly pointing out that whoever pulled this stunt must have a serious death wish. Her terrifying killing intent flared up entirely as she interrogated how anyone dared to sell off secrets the Tang clan grinded so hard to secure. The rival martial artists instantly recognized her. Hwaun was the infamous Poison Flower, one of Murim's legendary 3 flowers. One dude totally lost his mind, seeing a direct Tang clan heir in the flesh, awkwardly rushing forward to desperately pay his respects. Claiming the Central Wind sect, he frantically clarified that they wanted exactly 0 beef with the Tang clan's business. He announced their immediate retreat. The Noble Origin sect quickly followed suit, biting their tongues as they backed off in defeat. The Jade Phantom Assassin dipped out next. Meanwhile, one guy violently swore to hunt down the rat who leaked the info and literally peel their skin off. Everyone scattered like roaches. Mind blown by the sheer flex of the Tang name, Soryong turned to Wolfgang, asking if they were finally in the clear. Wolfgang completely shut that down. He knew damn well these unorthodox scumbags wouldn't just pack up and quit that easily. He ordered them to set up a perimeter nearby and run guard rotations, convinced those rats were just lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect opening to strike. He barked an order at Gupai to scout out their exact hideout. Soryong was visibly stressed out, but Hwaun quickly cooled his nerves, promising him they absolutely had this in the bag. Honestly though, his brain was completely stuck on finding his golden bee. The squad went into stealth mode, ducking behind a massive boulder to spy on the swarm. Surprisingly, the terrifying bugs were incredibly cute, looking like they were rocking tiny fake fur coats. Dozens of them zipped in and out of the massive tree trunk. Soryang absolutely lost his mind fanboying over the golden king bees. Hua-eun confessed she had never seen them in real life, totally shocked by how huge they actually were. To Soryang though, they were just precious. Hua-eun marveled at their insane fluffiness, and even the stoic Wolgang looked hyped about the massive find. But Soryang quickly realized the colony was on the smaller side, counting maybe a few hundred of them max, but given their absolute unit size, the math totally checked out. Hua-eun got curious about their living situation. Dropping some heavy knowledge, Soryang explained that a basic bee colony, even a tiny one, usually packed anywhere from 5,000 to 7,000 bugs. Hua-eun was totally mind-blown that he could calculate that without even cracking open the hive. Soryang just shrugged, explaining he could easily eyeball the numbers simply by tracking the traffic flow at the main entrance. Suddenly, a shadow dropped right behind them. Gupai was back from his stealth mission, confirming he had pinpointed the exact location of those unorthodox creeps. Wolgang instantly demanded coordinates. Gupai hesitated for a second, but just like Wolgang predicted, those rats had straight up pitched their tents right on the opposite ridge. They were just chilling for now, but the second anything popped off, they were 100% guaranteed to ambush them. Wolgang made the tactical call to hold out until pitch black to harvest the honey using a secret Tang clan technique. Intrigued, Soryang asked for the blueprints of this plan. Wolgang laid it out. They would torch mugwort leaves to create a massive smokescreen, completely sedating the swarm so they could safely secure the bag of honey. Soryang was hyped, calling it a genius strat. But Gupai totally burst their bubble, stressing that the wind was blowing dead straight at their faces, which basically threw a massive wrench in the operation. Soryang's brain went into overdrive, instantly cooking up a counterplay. Gupai raised an eyebrow, questioning if it was actually a big brain move. Soryang confidently explained that the headwind was actually a massive buff. It completely masked their human scent. Riding that adrenaline high, he decided to pull a quick solo stealth run straight to the hive. He was literally already sprinting when Hua-eun violently yanked him back by the collar of his shirt, screaming at him that it was pure suicide, considering the golden queen bee was officially classed as a terrifying mid-tier venomous beast. But Soryang was an absolute fiend right now. He practically begged, swearing he just wanted to poke it exactly one time and bounce. But right as he was wrestling like a madman to break her iron grip, a stray rock got kicked loose, aggressively rolling directly into the hive. In a fraction of a second, their blood ran cold. They instantly knew they just totally screwed up. The whole hive just absolutely erupted. Hwan snatched Soran up, and they bolted out of there like lightning. Afterward, they got chewed out hard for pulling such a reckless stunt. By the time night fell, Soran was still racking his brain for a backup plan. If they just sparked a fire against the wind, they'd end up boxed in between those sketchy, unorthodox factions and the murder hive. This golden queen bee? Total anomaly. Nothing like the bugs he was used to. These monsters could literally feel footsteps shaking the dirt from over 30 kilometers away, which is a massive flex even regular ground bees can't pull off. Hwan eventually tracked him down, mentioning the kids just finished stuffing their faces and were itching to wander around, so she tagged along with them. Soran gave her a quick thanks, tossing the little guys a warning to stay out of trouble. Hwan suddenly plopped down right next to him, totally throwing him off balance. She asked if he'd figured anything out yet, but he just mumbled about needing more time to study the swarm. She apologized for breathing down his neck, telling him to chill out and take all the time he needed without stressing. Ironically, her pep talk only dialed his anxiety up to an 11. But right then, she spotted a pack of monkeys throwing a massive fit across from the ancient tree. They were going absolutely feral. Suddenly, Soren grabbed her attention, asking if she caught that random sweet scent. Hwan sniffed the air, and it instantly clicked for Soran it had to be pheromones. Panic hit him, and he yelled that they needed to dip immediately because those bees were gearing up for a bloodbath. Without hesitating, Hwan snatched him up, launching herself into the air to get as much distance from that death trap as possible. She kept Soran dangled by his armpits as they watched an absolute nightmare flood right out of the nest. The swarm locked onto the fallen monkey, absolutely shredding the carcass to pieces. Seeing that raw carnage was a massive reality check for both of them. Mind blown, Hwan had to know how Soran managed to predict the Golden Queen's strike, way before anyone even heard a single buzz. He pointed out the smell as the dead giveaway. Taking a second whiff, Hwan finally picked up on this faint, floral magnolia vibe. Soran was honestly shook that her senses were sharp enough to isolate those specific pheromones. When he asked if she recognized that exact scent earlier, she nodded, confirming the whole magnolia thing. Hitting that eureka moment, Soran burst into full-blown maniac laughter. completely oblivious to the fact that his hands were resting on her shoulders, which definitely made Juan's face turn bright red. Flashing a ridiculously villainous grin, Soren announced he just cooked up the ultimate master plan to wipe out those unorthodox goons hunting their golden bees. Cutting away to the enemy camp, dudes from all these random rival clans were just chilling around a massive bonfire, acting completely unbothered. They were downing booze, shoving meat into their faces, when one guy suddenly brought up the Tang clan, wondering when they'd finally show up to snatch the honey. Another guy scoffed, saying it was a total coin toss. Just 3 days ago, the Tang squad was making noise everywhere, but now, pure radio silence. Someone threw out a theory that they were probably about to make their move, while another dude just shrugged, basically hinting that chaos could drop at any second. Then, one skeptic in the back started questioning if these hives were even worth all this hype. Getting instantly triggered, another guy roasted him, asking if he'd been living under a literal rock his whole life. He broke it down for him. Candles crafted from golden beeswax aren't just fancy, they are top-tier luxury items used strictly by the imperial family. Their whole game plan relied on the Tang clan taking the honey and ditching the rest of the combs, leaving a massive payday right on the table for them to scavenge. But honestly, their real endgame was way darker than just stealing scraps. They had some deeply messed up plans lined up once the Tang clan was out of the picture. Out of nowhere, somebody name-dropped that infamous poison master, one of the legendary Three Flowers of Muram. The crew practically drooled over the idea of keeping her alive as a hostage, just because she was insanely gorgeous. Their absolute creep energy was off the charts. They were hyping each other up over this twisted fantasy, even joking about which one of them would score the ultimate flex and become the Tang clan's new son-in-law. But mid-laugh, the whole camp froze. One dude caught a weird whiff of something sweet cutting through the smoke. Being completely delusional, they just assumed it was the poison flower herself, figuring her natural perfume was just as intoxicating as the rumors said. But before they could even blink, a deafening hum drowned them out. They glanced up, completely paralyzed as a massive shadow formed right above them. Pure nightmare fuel gripped their souls when reality finally hit. An apocalyptic swarm of golden bees was dive-bombing straight for their camp. Pure chaos broke out as the men scattered like roaches. The swarm showed zero mercy, ruthlessly hunting them down and leaving them screaming in agony on the dirt. Painted straight through their camp was the exact bait mixture that triggered the bug frenzy. Tucked safely away in the bushes, Soren, Juan, and Wolfgang were kicking back and enjoying the show. Juan and Wolfgang were literally jaw-dropped, watching this lethal cloud of stingers lock onto one hyper-specific target area. Utterly baffled, Juan demanded to know what kind of dark magic Soren just pulled, because there was no way regular floral scents could trigger this level of biblical rage. Smirking, Soren flexed that he basically hit the ultimate aggro button, using the oldest trick in the book. Still trying to process it, Juan pointed out that all he did was mash up some random flowers and fruit, splashing the juice everywhere like a chaotic bartender. Soren laid down the facts, explaining that this specific scent was basically a kill order. He broke down the science, detailing how pheromones act as invisible chemical triggers. Think of it as nature's group chat for bugs, especially for hive-mind insects like ants and wasps, who literally depend on these chemical signals to survive. The specific pheromone Soren just dropped was the exact same trigger that killer bees unleash to signal a full-blown attack: isoamyl acetate. Mind blown, Juan asked if those magnolias were pumping out the exact same scent bees used to declare war. But honestly, Soren was way more hyped by the fact that Juan actually recognized the smell. She shrugged it off, explaining that since the Tang clan basically breathes toxins, her sense of smell was dialed up to 11. The timing was absolutely flawless. With the golden swarm completely distracted by their target, Soren made the call. It was time to raid the hive and secure the bag, or in this case, the honey. They crept up like ghosts. Soren clutched a sketchy makeshift smoke bomb wrapped in leaves. Wolfgang instantly threw out a warning, stepping up to take the front line because of the insane risk. Stepping inside, their jaws practically hit the floor at the sheer scale of the colony. It was ridiculously massive. The giant honeycombs dangled from the ceiling like a massive, dripping golden chandelier, giving off some serious final boss room energy. By some miracle, the swarm had completely ditched the base, leaving the door wide open for Soren, Juan, and Wolfgang to sneak in. But Soren's eyes narrowed. Something was totally off. There was not a single drop of honey. Tripping out over this, Wolfgang scanned the glowing cells and confirmed the harsh truth. They were bone dry, exactly like Soren had guessed. The whole vibe was super unsettling. Taking another look around, Soren realized there was not a single egg in sight either. Wolfgang shot him a look, asking if the missing brood had something to do with the ghost town pantry. Breaking it down, Soren explained that the swarm had been packing their bags to migrate this whole time. That is exactly why they chugged their entire honey stash and were literally carrying it in their guts. He dropped his theory. Having way too many noisy humans stomping around the area totally spooked the hive into relocating. Backing him up, Juan pointed out that when a colony hits the road, the queen straight up cancels egg production, since nobody is around to babysit the larvae. But right at that moment, Soran's gaze snapped to a dark, suspicious corner of the chamber. He caught a glimpse of an insanely thick, oversized stinger poking out. Whipping his head toward Wolfgang, he deadpan asked how long the guy could spam his movement abilities without passing out. Wolfgang did the math and figured he could probably sprint for a solid 12 hours if he paced himself. Soran just hit him with absolute silence, which instantly sent Wolfgang's anxiety through the roof. Out of nowhere, Kupai crashed the scene, screaming a massive red alert. The Golden Death Squad was pulling up, and he begged Soran to dip right that second. No hesitation, they instantly broke into a dead sprint. Wolfgang yelled at Soran to drop everything and just get out of the danger zone, sweating bullets. Juan literally snatched his collar, dragging him forward to pick up the pace. Kupai was losing his mind, screaming at the top of his lungs to bail. Right freaking now, the tension was absolutely suffocating. Fast forward a bit, and by some insane stroke of luck, they actually made it out alive. Juan let out a massive sigh of relief, thanking the heavens they beat the swarm. But just as she opened her mouth to celebrate their survival, her eyes locked onto a weird bulge in Soran's jacket. Catching her stare, the dude smoothly unzipped his coat to flex his secret loot. Poking out was the twitchy little head of a massive insect. Dropping his voice, he casually announced he had literally kidnapped the Golden Bee Queen. Since the honey bank was empty, he straight up stole the VIP who prints it. The second those words hit their ears, the entire squad's souls left their bodies. All the color drained from their faces as cold sweat started pooling on their foreheads. The royal bug let out this weirdly cute chirp, while Soran, flashing an absolute menace of a grin, calmly informed Wolfgang that millions of angry drones were about to realize their mom was gone and go on a relentless murder spree. Yet, zero panic from our boy. He actually looked hyped, gently petting the abducted queen like a Bond villain before casually telling them to run for their lives. And just like that, the most chaotic, high-stakes marathon began. Wolfgang hoisted Soran onto his back like a backpack, and they blitzed out of there at supersonic speeds. The royal hostage was tweaking out, but Soran went into full whisper mode, promising to hook her up with a chill, private crib. Fast forward a few brutal days, into this insane death race for some sweet nectar. The crew was literally burning their engines out, pushing way past their physical limits, running on zero sleep and spamming every single movement technique in their arsenal. By the time they finally crashed at their safe zone, they were hacking up their lungs, completely drained. Half the roster from the Danon Blood unit had already dropped out of the lobby. Huffing and puffing, Soran swore to himself he would demand a tutorial on movement arts the second they got home. Suddenly, mid-sprint, one of the fighters wiped out hard, and someone yelled out that they had just lost another man. The poor dude eating dirt was Gangurin from the Danon Blood unit. Bro looked like an absolute zombie on the floor, massive dark bags under his eyes, drooling and dripping snot everywhere. Soran looked just as cooked, but he clung to this one shred of hope. Put enough miles between the kidnapped queen and her hive, and the swarm's tracking radar would completely jam. Wolfgang's mental health was hitting rock bottom, desperately asking if they were actually going to survive this. Soran totally dodged the question. Cut to 3 days later, another exhausted fighter face-planted into the mud, violently apologizing for capping out. Honestly, Soran was starting to seriously stress over Wolfgang, and so was Juan. He made the executive call right then and there. The giant bug was going to be Soran's personal ride, even though the kid instantly protested, insisting he could totally sprint on his own. Even while looking completely drained and running on 1% battery, the exhausted boy shyly swore he could keep up with the squad. Tang clan members, we do not do quitting. That was the vibe. Cut to the massive gates of the Tang estate. 2 sentries on duty catch movement in the shadows. Wait, is that the young lady? Hua and Soran, literally using each other as crutches. They stumble forward, looking completely wrecked, leaving the guards absolutely speechless. Panic mode activated. They immediately sound the alarm for the main family. Hearing the absolute chaos, Juan and Chelson sprint outside. Their jaws drop to the floor. The duo looks like they just survived a war zone. Hua is literally running on fumes. Chelson gently pulls her into his lap, channeling healing energy while glaring daggers at Soran. "What did you do?" he barks. Soran throws his hands up in a chill motion. He explains that Hua's energy core is just drained from spamming high-speed movement arts for 10 straight days with 0 breaks. But there is absolutely 0 time for a debrief. He frantically tells the crew they need to sprint to the training grounds, like, right now. Juan is looking at him like he is crazy, until Soran pulls a literal queen bee out of his jacket. He drops the bomb. The rest of the swarm is right behind them. Target destination? The ancient tree in the courtyard. Everyone is frozen in pure shock. Well, Everyone except Juan. The old man is actually cracking up at Soran's wild antics. Chelsen's brain is short-circuiting. He sent this kid to fetch some honey, and he brought back the whole freaking monarch. Juan slaps a heavy hand on Soran's shoulder. Say less. We are moving out. Without warning, Juan snatches Soran up and launches into the sky. Soran lets out a terrified shriek. The elder is blasting forward at insane speeds, but Soran keeps screaming his lungs out. The elder yells over the wind, asking what his deal is. Soran points frantically. The swarm is inbound. Juan spots the massive black cloud of insects and asks, Wait, you brought the entire squad? The ancient tree is finally in sight. Time to hit the gas. Soran's fragile body is practically tearing apart from the G-force, but Juan's iron grip keeps him from turning into roadkill. Touchdown. They hit the dirt in front of the ancient tree. Soran steps up, presenting the massive trunk to the Golden Queen. Welcome to your new luxury estate, he tells her. He gently releases her into the air. Pretty sick setup, right? The queen gives a low, vibrating buzz. It is almost like she is nodding. She circles the bark, doing a full inspection before giving Soran this super hyped look. Like, okay human, you cooked. Soran silently prays she is actually vibing with it. Juan taps his shoulder. Time to bounce. The rest of the Air Force is making their final approach. The entire clan watches in awe as a massive shadow covers the sky. The swarm is here. The Golden Queen lets out a piercing command. Hearing their boss, thousands of bees dive bomb straight into the ancient tree. Juan just shakes his head, mind totally blown. In all his decades alive, he has never witnessed a flex quite like this. Boom. Mission passed. The Golden Queen has officially been secured. Fast forward a bit. Picture this. Giant, dog-sized killer bees casually sipping on sugar water like it is an iced latte. They are completely drained, chugging the sweet stuff to recharge their stamina. Hey, you know what they say, the fastest way to anyone's heart is through their stomach. Free food equals instant friendship. And thankfully, this universe actually has its own version of refined sugar, so the bribery worked flawlessly. Soran is crossing his fingers that this all-you-can-drink buffet stops them from stinging the clan to death. Best case scenario, these terrifying bugs finally accept him as their supreme boss. Out of nowhere, Soran slaps his forehead. He forgot something huge. Chelsen and Juan side-eye him hard, bracing for the worst. Now what? Sweating bullets. Soran stammers. Where is Hua? Chelsen looks ready to throw hands. Seriously? You are just now checking on the girl? He snaps back that he already sent her to the matriarch's quarters to get some much-needed sleep. Then, Chelsen squints at him. Did they seriously use high-tier movement arts all the way from the Death Forest to the estate, with a massive swarm riding their coattails? Soran gives a highly guilty nod and mumbles an apology. He admits they were surviving on a pathetic 4 hours of sleep a night, spending the rest of the time purely sprinting. That is when a light bulb goes off in Juan's head. Wait a minute, where on earth is the Danhande squad? Soran averts his eyes, sweating like a sinner in church. He awkwardly confesses that the elite guards kind of passed out somewhere along the highway. I will go drag them back later, promise. Spoiler alert, the heavy hitters of the Danhande did eventually make it back in one piece to their families. Cut to Hua's bedroom. The young lady is finally conscious and actually has the strength to sit upright. Soran is right there, chilling by her bed. Hua makes a disgusted face, bringing up the fact that those terrifying golden bugs are back to full HP. Soran smirks. He tells her the bees are currently busy harvesting nectar from the Tang clan's legendary poison mountain. Surprisingly, Hua finds that mental image kind of cute. But then, bam! The door flies open. Gupe bursts into the room, gasping for air and screaming Soran's name. It is a code red. He needs to get outside immediately. The golden swarm is acting completely unhinged, tearing the place apart like they lost something valuable. Soran and Hua instantly dash out to assess the damage. Total chaos. Massive insects are swarming every inch of the yard, but the second they spot Soran, they lock on like heat-seeking missiles and tackle him. They grab onto his clothes with zero hesitation. Soran is flailing, totally bewildered. The bugs pull so hard they literally hoist him into the air. Hua is dead silent, watching Soran levitate. He is being carried off by a cloud of bees, legs locked straight, and arms stuck out in a perfect, rigid T-pose. It is genuinely the most hilarious, absurd thing you could ever witness. Finally, the buggy Uber drops him off. Dusting himself off, Soran demands to know why they are freaking out around the hive. His spidey senses are tingling. Something is definitely off. The giant bees just nudge him gently in the back. They are basically shoving him toward the entrance, practically begging him to step inside and see for himself. He noticed the hive was already coming together, with the swarm grinding hard to stash that honey. Then, the VIP rolls up the queen bee herself. Soran just casually holds out his hands. He asks if she wants an upsy-daisy, but boom, total lockdown. The swarm swarms him, pinning his limbs so he literally cannot budge. One cheeky little guy even pinches his face. He stares at the queen. Gotta hand it to her. She is giving total elegant, majestic vibes. Props to the artist for that top-tier character design. But then, she closes her eyes and zooms straight for his face. Panic mode activated. Before he can even dodge, she plants a massive kiss right on his lips and shoves something inside his mouth. Pure reflex takes over, and he gulps it down. Instantly, his buggy bodyguards back off and let him go. The queen finally pulls back. Soran's face is burning up, turning completely cherry red. Absolutely mortified, he screams at this literal insect that she just stole his first kiss. Like, what on earth was her problem? But then, the glitch happens. He drops to the dirt, clutching his head as mind-numbing agony just fries his brain. What in the world did she just force-feed him? Looking up, the queen is just hovering there, looking mad, mysterious. These giant mutant bees just watch him writhe in the dirt like a glitching NPC. A blazing red aura erupts around his body, radiating pure, scorching heat. It is not just pain, it is this insane, skin-crawling itch from the inside out. The heat is suffocating, making him drool and grind his teeth while sweat absolutely drenches his clothes. His heart is redlining, pumping like it is literally on fire. Fighting through the hellish pain, he reaches a trembling hand toward the queen, managing to choke out one last, desperate question about what she made him swallow. And boom, lights out. In the dark void of his mind, he hears his name. It is Juan, frantically asking her grandpa what is wrong. The old man strokes his beard, tapping into that veteran wisdom, and casually drops that Soran must have swallowed some crazy overpowered elixir. Hearing that, Soran's consciousness completely dips again. Juan instantly channels her chi to stabilize him. Fast forward, and Juan is playing nurse, gently wiping his sweaty face with a warm towel. Looking like an absolute mess with bedhead, Soran blinks awake and asks where he spawned. She tells him he is safe in the clan's infirmary. Fixing his hair, she spills the tea. They saw him literally getting dragged away by those massive golden bees. She and her grandpa sprinted to the hive, found him completely knocked out, and carried him back. She asks if he remembers anything from the chaos. Soran just lets out this massive sigh and facepalms so hard. He cannot stop cringing over losing his first kiss in this world to a bug. Juan totally catches that weird look on his face. She leans in, asking if his body is still glitching out or feeling weird. She even offers to grab her grandpa. Soran just stares at his hands, sighs, and tells her not to stress. He drops the bomb that the queen force-fed him her own personal stash, which is definitely what triggered his whole system crash. Totally invested now, Juan asks what the heck he ate. Soran shrugs, saying he does not know the official lore drop name, but he would dub it the Bee King's elixir. Juan's eyes light up with a smile. Soran breaks it down, explaining that the basic worker, bees just grind for regular nectar and pollen to survive. That basic mix is strictly for the grunts doing the heavy lifting. Hooked on the story, Juan asks what the VIP queen actually eats then. Soran deadpans that the queen literally only feasts on that premium Bee King's elixir, custom brewed by the workers, from the second she spawns until she dies. Long story short, the stuff she aggressively shoved down his throat was straight up royal jelly. It finally clicks in Juan's brain. This was the ultimate god-tier item meant only for the royalty. But Soran is not done. He teases that this elixir comes with a crazy hidden buff. Shook, Juan waits for him to drop the rest of the stats. Soran lays it out. A regular worker bee clocks out after about a month and a half. But the queen, running purely on that elixir, lives 60 times longer. He asks her if that is not just an absolutely insane stat boost. Her brain basically short-circuits. Juan tells him to take a breath because that is way too much lore to process at once. Exhaling, she admits she finally gets it, and the puzzle is solved. She points out that Soran's current cultivation build, the 5 poisons return technique, is just a low-tier starter pack. Because he is running on beginner hardware, his body bottlenecked and could not absorb that massive XP drop. However, since the base golden, bee honey naturally packs 2 months of pure internal energy. Hitting that times 60 multiplier meant he literally just bagged 10 whole years of internal energy. She hypes him up for the insane RNG luck. Soran finally feels that power surging as the thought of 10 years of power just echoes in his mind. Meanwhile, Juan gets super shy, awkwardly twisting her hair, and tells him he might want to go check the silver mirror. Avoiding eye contact and totally blushing, she hints that maybe the elixir. Wondering what kind of crazy side effects the queen bee juice packed, Soran scratched his cheek. He grabbed a silver mirror, peering into the glass. Wait a minute. His reflection stared back, glowing with literally flawless, glass-like skin. Prodding his cheeks, he deadass wondered if royal jelly always came with a built-in skincare routine. The texture was unreal, insanely soft and ridiculously smooth, almost feminine. As his fingers traced his jawline, a terrifying thought hit him. This was the ultimate queen's food. What if it triggered some unwanted biological changes? Pure panic started bubbling up in his chest. Did he just morph into a girl? Glancing around the empty room to make sure the coast was clear, his heart hammered against his ribs as he peeked down his pants. He collapsed onto the floor, letting out a massive breath. Thank God. The family jewels were safe and sound. Sprawled out on the floorboards, reality crashed over him. Juan had warned him earlier, if the old man hadn't stepped in to channel his chaotic energy, things would have gone fatally wrong. A heavy wave of gratitude washed over him. He literally just dodged the Grim Reaper. Stepping out of the infirmary, he strolled through the clan courtyard, only to find eyes glued to him from every direction. Why was everyone hitting him with that intense, weirded-out stare? Was it because his inner aura leveled up? The non-stop whispering and heavy side-eyes were making his skin crawl. Pushing past the low-key giggling crowd, he broke into a total sprint. He finally crashed at the clan's dining hall, throwing a quick glance through the doorway. Inside, the whole squad was gathered, his future father-in-law, his fiancée, her mom, and the elder, all sharing a massive feast. His mother-in-law locked eyes with him instantly. Smirking, she hyped up how insanely handsome her son-in-law was looking, and asked about his health. He bowed respectfully, brushing it off with a quick, "I am all good," before dropping an apology for giving them a heart attack. Knowing exactly what went down, his mother-in-law waved it off. She declared it a total win, a crazy lucky encounter that they absolutely needed to celebrate. She then pivoted to roast her own daughter, teasing that Juan was probably low-key jealous of Soran's glowing skin. Blushing hard, Juan panicked, cutting her mom off, and aggressively motioning for Soran to grab a seat. Feeling the heat rise to his own cheeks, Soran pulled up a chair, diving into the massive, mouth-watering spread with the family. Cutting through the chatter, his future father-in-law checked in, asking if his body was holding up after the absolute chaos. Nodding firmly, Soran confirmed he was 100% okay, throwing out another apology for the massive scare. He then locked eyes with the elder, pouring out pure gratitude for pulling him back from the brink. Muan flashed a knowing grin, praising his insane luck. Catching the vibe that the entire table was dying for the tea, his father-in-law finally demanded the full story. He admitted he caught some whispers about this legendary Queen Bee elixir over drinks, but he needed the uncensored director's cut. Pausing, Soran awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck. Finally, he broke it down. The Golden Queen Bee, basically vibing hardcore with her new setup, decided to drop him the ultimate thank you gift. Using wild hand gestures, he painted the picture how this massive insect literally dragged him into the core of the hive, and force-fed him the sacred bee king juice, which sparked all the explosive drama. Dropping a plot twist, his mother-in-law pointed out that even mid-tier venomous beasts understood the concept of loyalty, absolutely geeking out over the whole situation. Juan sat there stunned, her mind spinning gears. Before she asked the million-dollar question, was there any glitch in the Matrix to farm more of that god-tier nectar? Because if they could pull that off, it would be an absolute game-changer for the entire clan's power scaling. Chiel Song chimed in, dropping facts that just the basic golden honey was a legendary drop, but the queen's personal stash? That was a straight-up mythic buff. Completely hyped up, his mother-in-law slammed her hands on the table, begging him to secure another batch. The entire dinner squad stared at her, totally thrown off by her hardcore fangirling. Catching the fever, Juan doubled down, practically pleading to know if a restock was possible. Soran zoned out, running the calculations in his head. If they were dealing with basic mob-tier bees, they could just forge some fake queen cells and hack the workers into dropping royal jelly. But these golden bees were insanely high IQ. Any fake out would get instantly exposed, leading to absolute zero-tolerance destruction. Plus, regular royal jelly is just worker-crafted baby food. The stuff flowing through his veins came straight from the queen herself. He started tripping out, wondering if he even swallowed the same chemical compound. The deeper he analyzed it, the more the math wasn't mathing. Sighing, he decided to just drop the harsh truth. He looked them dead in the eye and shattered their hopes farming more of that nectar was completely impossible. That instant buzzkill made Muan and his mother-in-law demand a reason. Soran explained that even if they managed to snatch another dose, he highly doubted anyone would actually stomach the process of taking it. Raising an eyebrow, Chulsang leaned in, asking if the stuff tasted like actual garbage or smelled toxic. Dead serious. Soran stared blankly ahead. He told them the taste and the smell weren't even the real issue here. A cold shiver wrecked his spine as he dropped the ultimate bombshell. That legendary Bee King elixir, it gets harvested straight from the queen's mouth, and there is only one twisted way to extract it. Total, direct physical contact. He spelled out the unhinged method. You literally have to lock lips with the queen and let her transfer the nectar right onto your tongue. Dead silence swallowed the room. Everyone just froze. Breaking the tension, Mu Young practically screamed out of his mind. Locking lips with a giant bug, his mother-in-law completely short-circuited. Chiel San looked like he had seen a ghost, quickly doing the math and declaring that scoring any more of that mythical juice was a lost cause, unless our main guy stepped up, since he was obviously the queen bee's absolute favorite. Anyone else trying that would instantly meet their maker. Suddenly, it clicked for his fiancée. Her chopsticks hit the table with a clatter. A terrifying, murderous shadow darkened her face as she demanded answers. "You made out with it?" Her voice dropped below freezing, radiating pure killing intent as she hissed his name. The terrifying realization hit that her man actually swapped spit with a monster. Cut to the dead of night. Moonlight spilled across a quiet river, illuminating an isolated temple. A heavily scarred hand gripped the windowsill, watching the dark waters. This was the absolute apex predator of the Martial Alliance, Fist Emperor Yu Young-hak. Deep in his own head, a sudden knock snapped him back to reality as someone announced a fresh brew of tea. This caught the big boss off guard, pulling him from his trance to wave them inside. A stunning maid gracefully stepped in, presenting a steaming pot of Qishan white tea. That specific blend totally piqued the Emperor's interest. He took his seat, eyeing the delicate porcelain, noting out loud that this was the signature drink of his hometown. Pouring the golden liquid, the girl smoothly replied that she picked it on purpose, since it was a legendary local treasure. Flattered, the Emperor thanked her, ready to relax. He lifted the cup, completely blind to the maid glaring at him like a hawk. Right as the rim touched his lips, a heavy fist pounded on the door, totally ruining the master's midnight vibe. It was none other than military advisor Jianu. The Emperor slammed his cup back down, visibly confused about why his strategist was creeping around at this ungodly hour, but he let him in anyway. The long-haired advisor strode inside, bowing deep and tossing out a quick apology for crashing the tea party. This insanely gorgeous dude had sprinted over to deliver a critical, late-night dispatch directly from the Tang family. He knew the boss needed this intel right now. Flashing a chill smile, the Emperor waved off the intrusion. If Jianu was rushing in looking like that, something massive just went down. The advisor closed the distance, slapping a blood-red scroll onto the mahogany table. The news? Tun Young, the infamous blood-hand Rakshasa, was dead, completely decapitated. And worst of all, the Tang clan just bagged his top-tier, highly classified poison manual. The Emperor totally lost his mind. His fists clenched so hard, his entire body violently shook with pure rage. In a split second, he crushed the teacup into literal dust. He demanded to know how the hell they secured that book. Jianu laid out the facts, explaining that Tang Yan took a brutal hit from the Thousand Poisons Divine Sovereign and totally fell off the grid, allegedly ghosting everyone to hide out, way out on Hainan Island. But then, Jianu smirked, leaning in to drop a plot twist. That was 10 times crazier. Word on the street was some random rookie warrior rolled up with a squad of venomous pets and completely wiped out. The legendary Tun Yong. The Emperor was utterly paralyzed. A beast tamer wielding that kind of raw, destructive power was completely unheard of. Jianu made himself comfortable right across from the boss, claiming he had collected some wild rumors. He bet everything. The Supreme Leader would want to hear this epic saga. As he geared up to spill the tea, the maid practically burned a hole through his skull, leaking this absolute, suffocating killer aura. Smash cut to the Tang clan patriarch's fortress, where the heavy hitters crowded around a massive table. Sorang, Huan, his mom, and the Grand Patriarch anchored the meeting. Tension spiked as a furious elder demanded to know if there was a rat leaking their premium intel to outside factions. The guy sitting next to him was seeing red, utterly disgusted that someone would dare drag their pristine family name through the mud. Sorang, looking completely lost, leaned in to whisper, noticing everyone was too terrified to actually talk smack to her father-in-law. Juan just gave a low-key smirk, explaining the dynamic. The top dog already knew some fools tried to sabotage their legacy. Even the side branch elders were raging hard since, at the end of the day, blood is blood. The Patriarch had already launched a full-scale manhunt. He was about to march straight into Sichuan himself. One of the elders, morbidly curious, raised a hand to ask exactly what kind of lethal toxin the boss was packing for this trip. Without even blinking, the Patriarch coldly detailed his hit list. First, the Soul Destroyer, followed up by the Blood Burner, and finally, gut-rotting necrotoxin. His eyes practically glowed with pure, unadulterated malice. He envisioned his victims twisting in such unimaginable agony, their blood literally boiling, while their insides melted into absolute mush. Right as their very souls teetered on the edge of getting completely wiped out, he would drop the ultimate finisher, the 7-step soul-snatching venom. Talk about a god-tier lethal cocktail. The Patriarch wasn't wasting a single second. He immediately barked an order at his right-hand guy to mobilize the Poison Annihilation Squad. A quick nod, and boom, the entire squad materialized right outside the temple. Just a menacing crew of masked, hooded reapers ready to ride out. The Patriarch gave his son-in-law a firm look, telling him to stay frosty and promising a super quick return. Sorang hit him with a respectful bow, basically telling the old man to watch his six out there. The Patriarch just chuckled, totally baffled. throwing back that his ops were the ones who needed to be sweating right now. Cholsang and his toxic hit squad rolled out to deliver some serious karma to those absolute punks. Watching them leave, Sorang pointed at the intimidating crew, asking if those guys were actually the infamous Poison Annihilation Squad. Dude had not spotted them a single time since crashing at the estate. Juan flashed this knowing smirk, totally confirming his guess, dropping the fact that their daily grind was insanely brutal. She casually explained their main gig was literally deleting people from existence, earning them the title of the Poison Annihilation Squad. Sorang stood there, low-key shook, mentally questioning if straight-up assassination actually counted as a regular hard job. Right while they were zoning out, a loud, fake cough snapped them back to reality. Enter the Tang clan elders. Sorang and Juan immediately dropped into respectful bows. The old geezers subtly probed if our boy had stumbled into some crazy OP power-up lately. Sorang gave a quick nod, but his brain was working overtime. He honestly had zero clue if these guys were secretly hunting for the Golden Queen Bee. Plot twist. Reality was completely different. The elders were actually sweating bullets, acting super sus because they came to beg for a favor. Piqued, Sorang told them to spill the tea. He straight up asked if maybe this whole favor thing was tied to the royal bees. The elders panicked even harder, aggressively denying it and acting like they wouldn't dream of snagging such rare loot. Now, Sorang was mega invested, while the elders were just cringing out of their minds. One of the old dudes shuffled right up to our guy, gesturing for him to lean in close. Dropping to a total whisper, the elder asked if Sorang still remembered that hyped-up underground beetle tonic. Since our boy literally crafted the stuff himself, he held all the copyright to it. Smirking like an absolute boss, Sorang whipped out the stamina potion and started casually juggling the bottles. He was honestly fitting into this ruthless clan perfectly right now. If these top-tier boomers backed him up on clan matters, he would happily be their plug for the goods. The elders busted out, laughing, swearing they would have his back unconditionally moving forward. Juan watched this shady deal go down, totally disappointed. Suddenly, the Grand Patriarch stepped out, catching the elders, cracking up like a bunch of high schoolers. Right as our MC was about to hand off the highly coveted beetle stash, the Grand Patriarch demanded to know what the massive joke was all about. The elders, absolutely panicked, launching into this super awkward dance to play it cool, claiming it was just some wholesome bonding time. Wildly enough, the bluff totally worked. The Grand Patriarch bought it hook, line, and sinker, assuming they had finally recognized Sorang's insane value to the clan. Juan was silently fuming, basically losing her faith in humanity. Right at that exact second, a scout slammed the doors open, screaming that things had gone horribly wrong. The vibe instantly shifted to pure suspense as the big boss demanded the sitrep. Gupai dropped the ultimate bomb. The Lord of Sichuan was literally at death's door. The second those words dropped, the entire room spiraled into utter chaos and sheer panic. Sorang quickly stepped up, asking if the guy had actually followed the dosage instructions, and Gupai swore up and down that he did. But here was the crazy kicker. After experiencing the insane buffs from the tonic, the Lord decided to bring in a brand new concubine and literally chugged more than double the safe limit Sorang had specifically warned him about. Cold sweat started dripping down our MC's face, just picturing the absolute train wreck of side effects. The Grand Patriarch let out a heavy sigh, stepping up to go handle the messy situation personally. With Sorang being the absolute last dude standing at the estate, the boss handed him the VIP quest of guarding all the women. Our guy saluted the departure, completely locking in for his guard duty. Once the boss dipped out, Sorang completely chilled out, assuming the base was entirely secure. Cut to several hours later, pitch black nightfall. Sorang and Juan were just vibing on a bench. She casually quizzed him on his progress with the dual origin of 10 Poisons art that he had been grinding lately. He just shrugged, admitting the learning curve was not nearly as brutal as it was on day one. He broke it down. If the 5 Poisons return technique felt like a massive wrecking ball rolling right through your veins, this new 10 Poisons art hit way different, basically acting like a perfectly tuned twin-cylinder engine revving up inside him. Hearing that, Juan immediately clocked that our boy must have completely built up a crazy immunity to basic street-level toxins. Plus, she dropped some exclusive lore. He could now blast his internal chi outward or straight up enchant his weapons with it. Sorang's jaw literally hit the floor. The hype was way too real. He was absolutely itching to test drive this new skill tree. They quickly set up a straw training dummy. Sorang locked in. He whipped out a dagger, shutting his eyes to lock in entirely. This insane, neon green aura started flaring up all around him. Step 1 was channeling his inner chi from left to right, then spinning both energy spheres in sync. Once that raw ki pumped through his veins, his eyes snapped open, and he launched the blade with absolutely terrifying force. The weapon flashed like a literal lightning bolt, shredding the straw dummy like paper. Sorang was totally hyped. His fiancée even gassed him up for perfectly infusing his ki. The glowing blade ended up buried deep inside the brickwork, landing right between two masked goons. They low-key panicked, thinking they were totally busted, and instantly prepped for a kill sequence. But after spotting the shredded dummy, they realized it was just a crazy coincidence. One of the guys was clutching a heavy scroll. It was the legendary Bloody Hand Poison Art Manual. Their heist was officially a wrap. Time to ghost the scene immediately, before things got way too messy. They were mentally roasting the Tang clan guards for leaving the training pavilion completely vulnerable. Total clowns. Thanks to that massive skill issue, escaping was about to be a total breeze. But then, a massive plot twist dropped. A weird pink mist started flooding the air, putting both intruders on high alert. It had this crazy sweet scent. They had zero clue where the scent was dropping from, but right above their heads, a massive queen bee was locking dead onto them. She instantly tagged them as hostiles. Out of nowhere, blood-curdling screams started echoing straight through the pouring rain. Sorang was totally shook, completely clueless about the chaos. Meanwhile, Huan instantly snapped her gaze toward the noise. She instantly caught movement lurking deep in the bushes. 3 dudes decked out in full shinobi gear. 2 were crouching in the shadows, while the third was totally exposed. The queen bee just ruthlessly dive-bombed the guy. He was hardcore tripping out, utterly baffled by a mutant bug camping the training sector. Sorang and Huan analyzed the wild scene. It took them exactly 2 seconds to realize these were enemy trespassers. Huan knew it was go time. Looking absolutely feral, she rushed the goons, screaming at Sorang to snipe them with an arrow. She dashed so insanely fast she literally left a dust trail. Sorang just threw his arms up to shield his totally stunned face. He had zero idea what her master plan was. Over in the bushes, the queen bee was literally chomping on a ninja's ear. The dude was actually bawling, screaming at his squad to peel this monster bug off his head. One ninja locked eyes with Sorang, saw Huan charging like a literal demon, and instantly called for a fallback. The bee just dug deeper into her victim. As the remaining 2 scattered into the tree line, Huan relentlessly hunted them down, screaming at them to freeze. Realizing these rats were actually trying to dip, she ground her teeth and pulled out a deadly combat whip. She cracked it against the dirt with monstrous power, triggering a massive shockwave. But the ninjas somehow vaulted out of the blast zone. Her eyes went wide. Totally shocked they managed to dodge that. Meanwhile, the guy getting mauled by the bee finally drew his blade. He blindly lunged straight at Huan. The giant bug was still clamped to his skull. Sorang completely lost his mind and started screaming, frantically warning Lady Huan to watch her back. Even while the bug was literally draining his skull, the ninja unleashed a desperate, massive strike. But Huan casually parried the hit with her whip like it was absolute child's play. Flashing a dead-eyed glare, she instantly counterattacked. The dude barely even blinked before the leather weapon cracked inches away from his face. The crushing impact sent a brutal shockwave through his body, violently knocking the queen bee right into the air. With the target completely folded, Huan smoothly glided right behind him. The ninja blacked out, eating the dirt. Sorang's jaw was literally on the floor, still low-key stressing over her. But Huan just glanced back with this super calm aura, telling him to chill because she didn't even have a single scratch. Suddenly, this insanely toxic, dark energy started leaking from the downed ninja, making him writhe in agony. The queen bee just casually perched on Sorang's shoulder. He stared at the twitching body, sweating absolute bullets. He had zero clue who this guy was or if he was actually flatlining. Huan quietly tucked her whip away, getting hyper-focused on the creepy aura pouring straight out of the guy. She watched him quietly, trying to calculate the situation. Seconds later, the guy totally flatlined. Huan dropped the bomb he had bitten a hidden poison capsule to delete himself. Bro definitely took some incredibly heavy secrets to the grave. Nearby, another squad leader sensed the massive breach. He started screaming at the top of his lungs to raise the alarm. Huan quickly pivoted, immediately assembling a strike team to hunt the runners down. Sorang was sweating profusely, totally blown away by Huan's ruthless boss energy. She ordered him and Gu Pai to immediately fall in line. Gu Pai, the absolute menace leading the poison blood unit. The chase was officially on, with torches lighting up the pitch-black forest. Sorang, Gu Pai, and the clan's elites were sprinting through the dense brush. The squad point man knew the targets couldn't have gotten far at all. Looking dead serious, he ordered the squad to bag these rats no matter the cost. The veterans weren't even breaking a single sweat, but Sorang? He was literally fighting for his life, trying to keep up. Sweat beads rolled down his face as he channeled everything into firing up his 2-cylinder engine technique. Boom! He stomped so hard the earth literally shattered beneath his boots, swallowing him whole. He let out a completely unhinged scream, and the shockwave was so massive that tiny centipedes literally rained out of his clothes. Blinking in pure confusion, he whipped around, checking to see if he was actually still in one piece. Dude basically blasted a giant crater into the dirt. Gu Pai and the squad instantly hit the brakes on hunting down the well, trespassers and rushed over to yank him out of the rubble. After they dragged his heavy self up, he breathed a huge sigh of relief, thanking them, because he genuinely thought it was game over. But the second he glanced back down into the pit, his stomach completely dropped. A whole swarm of glowing green snakes was just locked onto him. Cold sweat drenched Soren as pure, primal terror took over. He just face-planted straight into a massive viper pit. Scanning the slithering mess, someone quickly broke it down, explaining that these reptiles always swarmed zones absolutely packed with heavy yin energy. And right now, it was their hunting season, turning them ultra-aggressive, so Soren needed to keep his guard all the way up. Our boy was quite literally sweating bullets right as one of the scales unhinged its jaw, coiled to strike. The whole vibe was incredibly off, considering tiger-striped water snakes were usually super chill and never this violently hostile. Pitch-black clouds swallowed the sky above them. Feeling the guilt trip, Soren owned up to totally killing their momentum and slowing them down. Smelling a massive storm brewing, he told the crew they needed to hustle. Gupai and his right-hand guy instantly pivoted, agreeing completely before breaking into a dead sprint. There was zero chance they were letting those trespassers slip away now. Just a few clicks ahead, a faint light flickered in the dark. Gupai flashed a sharp look at Soren, hyping up that they finally cornered their prey. The masked guys were absolutely raging, totally boxed into a dead end, pressed right up against a solid rock wall. As lightning cracked the sky, Gupei's squad pulled up and locked them down in a tight circle. Slipping their hands deep into their robes, Gupei's crew boldly declared that this little game of tag was officially over. Soren stayed dead quiet while the enemy leader shot them a lethal glare, barking the command for his guys to close in and crush them. The poison blood unit instantly flashed their lethal kunais. Not backing down, the masked goons ripped out their own steel, ready for a bloodbath. The elite Venom squad pushed forward, totally out for blood, right as one of the enemy thugs swung his heavy blade and charged them head-on. Two goons whipped flying daggers through the air, but a shinobi casually swatted them away with his blade. The attacker slammed his sword down with insane force, clashing violently against the ninja's steel. The masked squad was absolutely livid seeing how insanely overpowered this dude was. Moving faster than the eye could track, the shinobi delivered a brutal roundhouse kick straight to the guy's jaw, knocking his weapon completely out of his grip. They coldly ordered him to step back. Watching their guy get totally styled on, the poison blood squad instantly started sweating, panic setting in. But while the ninjas were busy flexing, a blur came rushing in at warp speed. It was Gupei. He went for a flawless blindside strike, but the ninja instantly ducked under it, making him hit pure air. Gupei just chilled for a second, silently analyzing his target. The shinobi did a few quick backflips to create some breathing room, but Gupei just casually flicked a dagger straight at him. Mid-flight, the blade literally exploded, splitting into 3 separate projectiles. Catching that, the ninja was completely shook. He barely managed to parry 2 of the strikes, but the final blade dug deep into his shoulder, sending shockwaves of agony through his body. Clutching his bleeding arm, he watched as Gupei swaggered up, smirking and calling him one lucky son of a gun. With 2 shinobis already knocked out cold, only this bleeding guy was left standing. The whole squad started slowly closing the distance on him. Honestly, the dude should have bought a lottery ticket because the pouring rain totally washed the lethal venom off Gupei's blade. As Gupei shot the bleeding ninja a total death glare, a booming, arrogant laugh echoed out. Look at all these pathetic little bugs swarming together. The entire crew froze dead in their tracks, super confused. Gupei instantly went on high alert, locking in with a deadly serious glare, demanding the stranger show himself. Right on cue, a shadow plummeted from the rocky cliffs above, violently crashing down right in front of the injured ninja, and totally obliterating the ground on impact. The dust cleared to show a bearded old-timer, rocking a totally sinister smirk. He locked eyes with Soran's crew, absolutely radiating pure killer intent. Just sensing the insane pressure rolling off this guy made Gupai's danger senses go completely crazy. He instantly clocked the old man as a top-tier martial arts master and screamed at his boys to fall back immediately. Meanwhile, a super dark, toxic aura started pouring out of the elder's body. Standing up straight, he flashed a villainous grin and strutted toward them. "Did you secure the package?" he demanded. Closing his eyes, the ninja reached into his robes and whipped out a hidden manuscript. "It is not the original text, but a verified duplicate made by the Tang clan," he reported. That instantly grabbed Soran's attention, absolutely shaking him to the core. His eyes went incredibly wide as a massive flashback hit him. The Grand Patriarch had explicitly warned him that this specific manual was something only truly twisted, wicked people would ever try to hunt down. Zoning in on the cover, it clicked. This was a direct copy of the forbidden text. His grandpa was secretly studying the last time he saw him. Meanwhile, one of the knocked-out ninja bodies laying in the dirt was completely tied up. Chilling right next to him, Soren dropped a massive bombshell on Gunpei, that ancient book. Just a knockoff of the legendary Toxic Arts Manual. The Blood Hand's ultimate secret. Gunpei froze. Pure, unadulterated fury instantly flooded his eyes as his jaw clenched hard enough to shatter glass. The assassin handed the grimoire over to the twisted old man, who cracked it open, a bone-chilling smirk creeping across his wrinkled face. Gunpei's knuckles turned paper white from gripping his fists so tight. Who in their right mind would actually hunt down something this messed up? "Who the hell are you guys?" he barked. But the geezer totally ignored him, just calmly flipping through the cursed pages. Exactly as I thought. Since it is just a bootleg, it perfectly outlines the combat stances. But the actual core mechanics are totally missing, the old man muttered under his breath. Even so, this is plenty to work with. He slammed the cover shut, looking way too pleased with himself. Might be jumping the gun a bit, but honestly, there is absolutely zero better way to announce our massive comeback, he sneered, his smile totally unhinged. Then he dropped the ultimate command. Bloody glory. Unleash the blood cultivation arts. Wipe every single one of them off the map. A savage grin lit up Bloody Glory's face as he locked in, swearing to finish the job. Right beside his boots lay the lifeless body of his fallen squadmate. He hovered his palm over the corpse, dialing in his focus. Seconds later, a sick, crimson aura started pulsing violently from his fingertips. Then it happened. Raw blood blasted straight out of the dead guy and spiraled right into his hand. Gunpei's jaw basically hit the floor. Absolute dread washed over him the second he clocked exactly what kind of dark magic this psycho was pulling. Off to the side, Soren was literally clutching his skull, his brain completely short-circuiting at the nightmare unfolding right in front of him. The assassin's eyes glowed with pure malice as that twisted smirk grew wider. He began violently siphoning every last drop of lifeblood from the corpse directly through his skin. And in a literal blink, the lethal kunai jammed in his shoulder, clattered to the dirt, his gaping wound stitching itself up instantly. The old geezer just threw his head back and cackled like an absolute maniac, manifesting a swirling orb of raw power in his palm. His predatory glare gave it all away. This wasn't just some random thug, but a high-ranking elder, straight out of the notorious blood cult, the legendary Daggerclaw Blood Falcon himself, Lord Ganak. Soren instantly snapped out of it. He locked his jaw, ripping out his own blade, ready for war. That immediate flex grabbed Ganak's attention, and catching a glimpse of the kid's peak physical build, the freak actually started drooling. He licked his chops, his gaze practically vibrating with greed. It had been way too long since he last drained the fresh, untainted blood of a youth. The storm kicked into overdrive, rain pouring down as Ganak casually tucked the stolen grimoire deep into his robes. Flashing a sadistic grin, he barked at Yulan to bag them all alive. Because honestly, nothing hits better than harvesting that ultra-rare, high-tier young blood. The assassin gave a quick nod before they both blitzed straight toward Soran's squad. Soran gripped his weapons tighter, every single survival instinct in his body screaming at him. Face locked in absolute dead serious focus, he ordered his crew to trigger the 5-point annihilation array. There was zero chance they were letting these monsters lay a finger on Soran. Lord Ganak vaulted into the sky, his entire body radiating this insanely suffocating pressure. He cackled like an absolute psycho, straight up daring Gunpei to try and block his advance. Every single eye locked onto the aerial threat, weapons drawn and ready. Channeling his dark aura, Ganak unleashed a catastrophic strike. The impact was apocalyptic, triggering a massive shockwave that literally ripped the concrete to shreds. Gunpei instantly knew this guy was playing on a whole different level. He screamed at Soren to brace for impact. Jagged boulders turned into flying shrapnel, forcing Soren to throw his arms up just to shield his face. But in that split millisecond of distraction, the assassin ghosted right behind him, wrapping a lethal grip around his throat. With eyes dead set on the kill, he cranked up the pressure, locking him into a flawless rear-naked choke. His eyes practically glowed in the dark as he hissed in Soran's ear to just stop struggling. Because the boss man needed his premium blood harvested fresh. Soran's oxygen supply tanked fast, his vision blurring as his face flushed a desperate shade of blue. But running on pure adrenaline, he sent a telepathic SOS to his little pets. A swarm of tiny, vicious centipedes swarmed out of nowhere and ambushed the choke artist. They sank their fangs straight into his wrists and jugular, forcing the assassin to instantly break the hold. These little bugs were absolutely going to town on him. Kind of cute if you ignore the deadly venom, honestly. The assassin was completely tripped up, violently shaking his arms, trying to process what the heck was happening. Out of nowhere, a flying dagger sliced through the rain and embedded itself straight into the freak's skull. Soran was stunned. His loyal centipede squad quickly scurried back to safety, while the assassin's lifeless body randomly erupted into roaring flames. Soran shielded his eyes from the blinding heat, his brain desperately trying to piece the chaos together. Suddenly, a familiar voice shouted his name over the blazing inferno. He whipped around, his eyes totally lighting up with relief. It was Juan. the badass clan elder and absolute alpha of the Wolf Syndicate. She was the sniper behind that clutch dagger throw. Her face went dead serious. Wolfgang's jaw locked as he immediately clocked the heavy vibes. Gunpei's squad was already knee-deep in executing the legendary 5 Poisons Annihilation Array, leaving the newcomers totally in the dark about how things escalated this fast. Without hesitating, Gunpei's elite units swarmed Ganak from all angles, but the monstrous elder just casually snatched one of the warriors by the throat, a psychotic grin spreading as a wave of toxic, dark energy exploded outward. He snapped his neck toward the new arrivals. Sweating bullets, Sauron finally yelled out the horrifying truth. They were up against a literal blood cult elder. Huan's eyes blew wide open in sheer disbelief. A massive wave of shock and raw terror hit her. That was the absolute worst-case scenario. Hitting full panic mode, she sprinted straight into the war zone, screaming at her entire squad to back up Vice Captain Gunpei immediately. Wolfgang gave a curt nod, tailing right behind her as he barked the command to shift their battle formation into overdrive. We are talking the 5 Venoms Eradication, locked right inside the 9 Venoms Death Array. Ganak absolutely bodies one of the clan members, tossing his lifeless frame into the dirt like trash. But before he can gloat, Gunpei and the squad swarm him, snapping perfectly into their brand new battle formation. A twisted smirk creeps across Ganak's face. He finally pieces it together. Sauron is the guy who actually took down Takhan Yang, the infamous Blood Hand Poison Claw. His eyes flash with pure malice. He starts trash-talking Takhan, calling that big, bad Blood Hand title a massive fraud. I mean, getting chewed to pieces by a bunch of basic centipedes? What a total joke. Wolfgang is absolutely not having it. Disgusted by the old creep's vibe, he barks at him to shut his mouth. He straight up tells Ganak his fate is sealed, he is getting buried right here, right now. But that threat? It just makes the psycho smile wider. He completely loses it. Thick, suffocating demonic energy explodes from his core. He dares Wolfgang and the crew to pull up if they have the guts. The sky rips open, heavy rain pours down, and sparks fly. It is go time. Chaos hits fast. One of the clan members takes a brutal hit. Sauron scrambles to patch up his bleeding arm, while the guy grunts in sheer agony. Sauron begs him to hang in there. His hands are shaking as he wraps the wound. Things are looking insanely bleak right now. The squad is running on fumes. Suddenly, Ganak lunges, snatching another clan member right by the throat. Flashing a demonic grin, he activates his foul arts, literally draining the lifeblood out of the poor guy. Watching this drops the team's morale to absolute zero. This blood cult freak is literally using them as health potions. Fully recharged, Ganak launches a lethal strike straight at Huan. The impact sends Huan flying, smashing violently into a massive tree trunk. Still wrapping bandages, Sauron snaps his head up, panic setting in. Huan crumples to the dirt, gritting her teeth as intense pain wrecks her body. Sauron drops everything, spinning around to check on her. Rushing over, desperate to make sure his future wife is okay, he grabs her by the shoulders. He frantically asks how bad the damage is. She tries to play it off cool, whispering that she is fine, before immediately coughing up a mouthful of dark blood. She tightly grips Sauron's hand, completely catching him off guard. Her eyes are heavy with exhaustion as she looks up at him. She begs her future husband to fall back to the estate and call in the cavalry. She spits hard facts they simply do not have the firepower to drop Ganak right now. Sauron grinds his teeth, pure frustration boiling in his veins. The worst part? He knows she is absolutely right. Boom. Ganak strikes again, sucking dry yet another poor soul from the clan. Gunpei and the front line are forced to scatter. The reality check hits hard. Sauron is dead weight in a high-level clash like this. Wolfgang, sweating bullets, orders Sauron to dip out and grab backup before they all get wiped. The veteran promises that, by some miracle, he will hold the aggro and keep Ganak busy, but Sauron needs to move right now. Sauron just freezes, staring at his battered squad. With sheer desperation in his eyes, he gives a heavy nod, swearing he will make it back at record speed. But he hesitates, admitting his footwork techniques are basic at best. He is terrified he will not make it in time. Before he can even finish doubting himself, Huan pulls him into a tight hug, tears welling up in her eyes. Flashing the warmest smile, she tells him she believes in him 100%. She knows the insane grind he has been putting in behind the scenes. She makes him promise that when this is all over, they will go hunting for rare venomous bugs together again. Sauron is left completely stunned. Huan gives his shoulders one last reassuring squeeze. She orders him to run, no looking back. Without skipping a beat, she charges right back into the bloody meat grinder to back up the team. Sauron stands there, glued to the spot. His mind is racing, his heart shattering. The sheer helplessness is driving him insane, but he bites the bullet and finally makes a break for it. Drenched in the pouring rain, he sprints blindly toward the clan estate. He is gasping for air, every single step feeling like he is dragging a ton of bricks. His legs give out. He eats dirt, collapsing hard as a swarm of his tiny pet centipedes scurry out from his sleeves. Believe it or not, these little creepy crawlies actually try to hype him up. He takes a breath, gently petting one of his bugs, but reality sinks in. Even if he burns his stamina using his Lightfoot arts, it is still a half-day trek to reach home base. And let us be real, the clan's heavy hitters are not even in town. Even if he sounds the alarm, the backup will not make it in time. The storm rages harder. Kneeling in the mud, Soran stares into the void. A dark realization hits him like a truck. Why on earth did they actually send him for help? The truth clicks. It was a suicide mission for them. They just wanted to guarantee he got out alive. His fists clench so hard, his knuckles turn white. They sacrifice themselves because he is the rookie, the weak link, the kid who needs protecting. He questions everything. Is this what Muram chivalry is actually about? His mind flashes back to the clan leader. That genuine, warm smile when the old man told him he was officially one of them. That word family echoes in his head on a loop. He always had imposter syndrome, convinced he was just an outsider crashing at their place. A flood of memories washes over him. All those epic moments, Juan and the crew laughing, reaching out to pull him up when he was down. They never saw him as a stray. They always saw him as blood. Sitting there in the storm, a deep, burning sense of shame washes over him. He was the only one who felt like a total outsider in this family. Soran flashed a smirk, gently rubbing one of his pet centipedes. It hit him hard. These guys were way too soft-hearted to be a ruthless assassin clan. Pushing himself up, his eyes locked in with pure resolve. It was time to rescue Mom. The little crawlers let out the cutest chirps, totally hyping him up. Soran dashed forward, absolutely dead set on pulling off this rescue mission. He needed a big brain play. Those blood cult freaks literally healed themselves by draining people dry. Luckily, this forest was an absolute goldmine of toxic frogs, lethal plants, and venomous reptiles. Sprinting through the brush, Soran suddenly slammed the brakes. Right in front of him, a massive snake pit. He stayed dead silent, gears turning in his head. The whole crater was absolutely crawling with vipers, practically glaring daggers at him. Catching the scent of the enemy, one of his baby centipedes started tweaking, getting totally aggressive. Stroking its shell with a chill smile, Soran told the little guy to stand down, promising he had this under control. He plucked the bugs from his jacket, dropping them on the dirt. One instantly snoozed, while the other two literally started crying. Wasting zero time, Soran ditched his pets and sprinted straight for the pit. Without hesitating for a split second, he swan dived right in, instantly pulling all the aggro. A cocky grin spread across his face. He was the main character, absolutely flawless, and he was doing this his way. These blood-spotted reptiles went by the name floral snakes. Sure, they looked kind of aesthetic, but make no mistake, they were lethal vipers. The moment Soran touched down in the nest, dozens of them swarmed him, instantly coiling, tight around his limbs, sinking their fangs into his arms and calves. Now, unlike your standard venomous snakes, rocking those massive front hooks, these specific variants had tiny venomous teeth, tucked way back by their molars, making it super tough for them to actually inject the poison. But strictly talking toxicity, they were easily East Asia's deadliest ground snakes. Sweat beaded on Soran's forehead, but he just smirked, daring the reptiles to bite him harder. One latched viciously onto his hand. He locked eyes with it, grinding his teeth as the sheer pain flared up. It was crazy obvious their venom outclassed a black mamba, but thanks to the Tang family's inner energy control technique, he could tank the poison, so he was chilling. Meanwhile, the baby centipedes, totally stressing over their bug dad, peeked over the edge and started squeaking at him. Soran yelled back, telling them to hold on and stay cool, promising he'd be out of the pit in a flash. But suddenly, his eyes shot wide open. His entire arm was absolutely covered in bite marks. Seeing the damage, he figured he had soaked up enough venom. With a completely calm face, he turned around, ready to dip. But out of nowhere, he realized he was totally stuck. Confusion flashed across his face. Glancing down, he saw the massive pile of snakes had wrapped his legs in a literal death grip. Soran froze, completely blindsided by this plot twist. Panic started creeping in as he gritted his teeth. This definitely wasn't on his bingo card. But then, to his absolute shock, the tiny crawlers dive-bombed right into the snake pit, landing perfectly on his shoulders and hair, leaving him utterly speechless. It was honestly the most wholesome thing ever. One of the babies went into full goblin mode, letting out a tiny, ferocious roar. Soran just stared at it, totally baffled. A snake locked its sights on the bug and let out a nasty hiss, which only made the baby centipede infinitely more furious. Its patience literally snapped. Flashing a savage glare, it launched off Soran's head, sinking its mandibles straight into the reptile, body slamming the snake into the dirt with insane force. Soran was shook. The little bug immediately bit another target, turning the pit into a whole brawl. Soran just watched the absolute chaos unfold, barely processing the madness. In the blink of an eye, the baby centipede totally folded the snake, Its eyes sparkled with pure joy, rocking a massive, proud smile like an absolute boss. Soren couldn't help but thank his little buddy for chasing off the rest of the mob. Crouching down, he realized his pets had just been super stressed about his safety. He started rubbing the little powerhouse's head, a huge smile breaking across his own face. The tiny crawler scurried right back up to his hair, instantly passing out with a happy grin. Soren made the call it was finally time to head back to Mom. Meanwhile, back at the absolute bloodbath, Juan was running on fumes, but her eyes blazed with unbreakable resolve. Dozens of their clan fighters had already hit the dirt, while a squad desperately circled Ganak. The villain just casually lifted a dude by the throat and, firing up his dark arts, sucked his blood dry to completely recharge his HP. Juan knew the math. If this kept happening, every single one of them was getting wiped out. Thick foam started bubbling from the mouth of the guy crushed in Ganak's grip. His grip tightened, literally siphoning the life right out of his prey. A sick, glowing smirk crept across his face as he bragged about how totally effortless this was. Drenched in sweat and running on absolute fumes, Juan ground her teeth. Ganak just laughed in their faces, taunting the crew, begging to know if anyone actually had the guts to step up. But Juan, she wasn't backing down. Snapping her whip ready, she tossed out any thought of running. She was locking in for the fight of her life, desperately praying. Soren had already made it to safety. Planting her feet, she barked out the command, keep all eyes locked onto Ganak and stay totally out of his strike zone. With the downpour finally easing up, she signaled her squad to fire off. One more flare for backup. One of her guys gave a quick nod, but Ganak? He just stood there, grinning like an absolute psycho. Out of nowhere, one of the clan elders stepped up. Locking eyes with one, he dead-ass pleaded with her to fall back and find Soren. Her jaw basically hit the floor, but without missing a single beat, she shut that idea down hard. The whole squad immediately started protesting. There was zero chance they were letting a direct heir of the legendary Tang clan abandon her people in the middle of a bloodbath. If she died on their watch, how could they ever look the patriarch in the eye again? Ganak just crossed his arms, soaking in the drama. The elders practically begged Juan to bolt, but she stood her ground, completely refusing to ditch her family. That wholesome moment? Yeah, it totally killed Ganak's vibe. He cut right through their chatter, snapping that playtime was officially over. Glaring daggers at Juan and the elder, he made one thing crystal clear. If his new favorite toys ran away, he'd be bored out of his mind. A sinister, deeply unhinged grin spread across his face. Stroking his chin, he dropped a massive threat. If Juan even tried to dip, he would literally burn the entire Tang clan to ashes. Because, honestly, to announce the grand comeback of the blood cult, they needed to throw one hell of a bloody welcome party. The elder clenched his jaw, the horrifying reality sinking in. This absolute monster was never going to let a single soul walk out alive. Hearing the grim truth, Juan gripped her whip even tighter. Eyes blazing with pure fury, she made a deadly vow. Even if they all got wiped out tonight, she was taking one of Ganak's arms straight to hell with her. The rest of the crew gave a hard nod, locking their sights entirely on the villain. Ganak? He just ate up the tension, smiling like a total creep. But right at that climax, a voice echoed from the shadows behind them, agreeing with her completely. A true clan member never, ever leaves their squad behind. The entire crew whipped around in pure shock. Juan's jaw practically unhinged, her eyes huge with disbelief. It was Soren. Flexing a super confident smirk, he casually strolled right up to the front line. The elder was completely stunned into silence, and a wave of panic hit Juan. Why the heck would he walk right back into this death trap? Without flinching, he started flicking those creepy little centipedes off his skin. Closing his eyes, he told the crew to hold the line, loudly declaring that the Tang clan literally never folds and never ghosts their own. Tearing off his shirt, his gaze sharpened into pure, unadulterated resolve, proving once and for all that he carried that fierce Tang blood too. In a flash, he ripped out his weapon and threw himself straight at the boss. Seeing the boy charge in, Ganak's face lit up with a totally unhinged, thrilled grin. Juan's heart completely dropped, screaming at Soren to stop right there. But Ganak was already gearing up for the kill. The villain had literally given him a free pass to live, yet here this kid was, walking right back into the slaughterhouse. In Ganak's eyes, Soren was acting like an absolute clown. Soren pushed his offense to the max, but Juan watched in absolute horror as Ganak effortlessly snatched the boy right by the throat. Ganak's eyes sparkled with twisted joy. Reaching out, he beamed at the fact that Soren was basically hand-delivering his own vital fluids. He slammed his palm straight against Soren's core, eager to taste his power, forcing the kid to grit his teeth in agony. But Soren had zero quit in him. He perfectly timed a block with his forearm. That didn't stop the villain. Flashing an evil smirk, Ganak just started draining him anyway. He brutally roasted Soren, mocking the kid for forgetting that veins literally run through arms too. The terrifying suction effect kicked in, viciously ripping the life force right out of Sauron's trapped limb, sending shockwaves of pure agony through his body. Watching him get drained alive, Juan and Gupe went into full panic mode. Pure dread spiked in their chests, and Juan frantically screamed out the order to jump in and save him. While the bloodsucker kept gorging himself on Sauron's energy, the duo sprinted headfirst into the danger zone. Ganak was having the time of his life. It had been way too long since he tasted the rich, powerful essence of a fresh fighter. But right before the rescue squad could actually tag him, Ganak stomped the earth with massive force, tossing Sauron aside like a ragdoll. Triggering his insane full bloodwave technique, he literally shattered the terrain, unleashing a massive shockwave. Gupe and the crew went flying backwards, slamming brutally into the dirt. Thankfully, Juan's reflexes kicked in, and she managed to catch Sauron midair. Fully juiced up on stolen power, Ganak started flexing a cocky grin. These guys had been a huge pain all night, throwing hidden weapons around like annoying little gnats, but thanks to Sauron's delivery service, he just wiped the entire board in one single move. Completely drained, Sauron blacked out. Looking absolutely devastated, Juan hovered over him, shaking him desperately to wake up. Claiming it was his twisted way of saying thanks, Ganak offered to give the boy a quick, painless death. Shielding him with her own body, Juan screamed that she'd never let that happen. But right at that cliffhanger second, Sauron violently coughed, his eyes fluttering open and pulling Juan's focus. And out of nowhere, Ganak froze, thick white foam rapidly bubbling out of his mouth. He shrieked, demanding to know what Sauron had done to him. Chunks of his hair just started shedding like dead autumn leaves, and his face literally began aging in real time. Pure terror flashed in his eyes. It finally clicked for him he was getting completely wrecked by an energy-draining poison. His strength just evaporated into thin air, leaving him violently shaking. In his mind, this was flat-out impossible, because the blood cult's sacred inner techniques were supposed to make him completely immune to energy-draining toxins. He clawed at his own face, absolutely losing his mind, because none of this made any sense. He frantically screamed, begging to know who the hell Sauron actually was. But Sauron? He just casually sat back with a smirk, pointed a finger right at him, and dropped the ultimate mic drop he was his absolute natural predator. Seeing Sauron totally fine, a massive wave of relief washed over Juan. But slowly, the venom started cooking Ganak from the inside out, making him violently shiver in pure dread. Getting completely clapped by some random kid, it shattered his whole reality. But Sauron's own gas tank was hitting empty. Running on fumes, he shot Juan an exhausted glance and hit her with a wild confession. Juan's eyes practically popped out of her head, completely blown away, leaving her utterly speechless. Meanwhile, Ganak locked his unhinged, fury-filled eyes dead onto Sauron. Cold sweat dripped down his face as he aggressively ground his teeth. He had zero clue what kind of cursed magic Sauron just pulled on his body. Panic fully set in, because the second he absorbed Sauron's blood, his own body completely stopped taking his orders. He stumbled forward, screaming that world domination for the blood cult was literally right at his fingertips. Going completely feral, he charged straight at Sauron, swearing he absolutely refused to die like this. All rationality went out the window as he unhinged his jaw and lunged in for a lethal strike. Catching this out of the corner of her eye, Juan instantly whipped out her weapon, clenched her jaw, and dropped into a combat stance, knowing things were about to get incredibly messy. Right before Ganak could close the distance, she sent her whip snapping through the air with insane speed, coiling it directly around his throat and unleashing absolute agony. She gasped, totally dumbfounded by what just happened. She genuinely couldn't believe that attack actually connected. Desperate, Ganak clawed at the leather with both hands, violently trying to rip himself free. A literal shadow demon, an elite martial artist like him, completely failed to dodge a basic strike. Vengeful light flared in his eyes, foaming at the mouth like a rabid dog. He was utterly enraged, his brain short-circuiting, trying to figure out how Sauron nerfed his legendary blood arts. Even if he grinded this kid's bones into dust and drank them dry, it wouldn't be enough to reverse the damage. Spitting absolute venom, he rushed Sauron like a total maniac, vowing to slaughter everyone and declaring the glorious return of the blood cult. Juan's eyes locked onto him in pure panic. White-knuckling her whip, her face contorted into sheer rage, and she screamed at the old geezer to just shut up and die already. Before Ganak could even take one more step, she yanked the whip and literally decapitated him on the spot. His severed head went flying, landing directly at Gupai's feet, who just stared at it completely bewildered. But then, a massive, hyped-up grin spread across his face. They actually clutched the win, and the monster was finally dead. The clan elder instantly sprinted over to Sauron and Juan to check if they were still breathing. The entire clan erupted into hype cheers. Their fierce lady had just straight-up beheaded a top-tier blood cult elder. Still processing the insanity, Juan frantically asked Sauron what just went down, and how he managed to nerf Gunnock so badly. Soran totally caught her off guard by randomly calling her big sister. The second those words dropped, her cheeks flared bright red, completely flustered. Soran was sweating bullets with massive dark circles under his eyes, yet he somehow kept this goofy smile plastered on his face. Then, he casually dropped that he needed a tiger-striped water snake to bite him to cure the poison. Seeing him fading fast, Juan went into full panic mode, completely lost on what was actually happening to him. The color fully drained from Soran's face. But then, it clicked for Juan. Tiger-striped water snakes were entirely non-venomous, so she instantly started barking orders at the clan to hustle and grab the right antidote. Fast forward a few hours. Soran jolted awake in bed, literally drooling. He blinked wildly, totally disoriented about where he even was. Catching him stir, the Great Patriarch zeroed in on him, warning him to stay totally still. Juan was also chilling in the room, keeping watch. Shock crossed her face when she realized Soran literally couldn't twitch a muscle. The dude was face-planted on the mattress, stiff as a board. Beyond confused, he croaked out, asking what kind of messed up situation this was. The Patriarch just locked in, channeling an insane surge of energy directly into Soran's spine. Juan finally let out a massive sigh of relief now that he was actually awake and talking. Then the Patriarch dropped a massive bomb. It had been a full 10 days since Soran passed out cold. Our boy was absolutely shook. Flashing a warm smile, Juan told him that because of his clutch move, she managed to slice off that absolute creep's head. After the fight, they had to drag his completely limp body all the way back to the clan estate. The venom in his system was so brutal that if the grandpa hadn't pulled up early, it would have been an absolute tragedy. Soran audibly gulped, sheer panic flashing in his eyes as he suddenly remembered getting tagged by a snake in his past life. Bro literally almost died 2 times just from snake bites alone. Fast forward a few tense moments, and the Great Patriarch finally wraps up his insane healing technique. Sorang's eyes slowly flutter open. She is officially out of the danger zone. Juan immediately swoops in, gently supporting her back so she can finally